Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is a Thursday, so you enter this show, unless you were there for the pre-show, having no idea who's joining me today. Well, we've got something exciting for you. We decided that her Thursdays weren't busy enough yet, so today, for the first time as a co-host on the Damage Report, Rayyvana is joining us. Rayyvana, how's it going?
Good, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I love the show.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Rayyvana is, of course, the host of Rayyactions. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you know that already. But if you don't, Rayyvana, what is your show all about? What are some of the things you tend to talk about?
Yeah, so my show's every Thursday. So today, 3 p.m., twitch.tv/TYT. We laugh at the news because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. So today we're going to be poking fun at Majorie Taylor Green. I've got a little bit of a Trump story with some Trump cards. So we'll come hang out. It's gonna be lots of laughs, lots of fun.
Okay, that sounds like fun, and that'll be coming up later on. Actually, why don't we bring up the graphics? So 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday is available at twitch.tv/TYT. And if you can't remember that time, it's super simple. Right after TDR, you've got Indisputable. Right after Indisputable, you got Rayyactions. Easy peasy. How could you forget that? So that'll be coming up a little bit later on. For those of you watching, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, and if you wouldn't mind sharing the stream, that'd be great too. And as we go through the next hour and a half of news, of which we have a lot on vaccine mandates, which are beginning to spread, not as quickly as COVID, unfortunately, but they're starting to spread at least. We've got that for you. We've got another GOP official tragically dying of COVID after talking about COVID in exactly the way you probably predict. We've got Karens, we've got it all basically. And if you want to send us any messages, tweets, super chats, anything like that about it, we will respond during our breaks, which are coming up in not that much longer. But that said, Rayyvana, you ready to jump into some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, let's talk about the big domestic political development of the morning. Progressives have been wondering, when is the Biden administration going to at least pretend that they care about climate change and doing something about it? And maybe today we've got a bit of it, although with quite a few grains of salt, which will be attached to this. But it has to do with gasoline and EVs, like pollution mandates and controls and things like that. And some plans that sound pretty good, at least initially, but we're gonna dive into it and see what we actually think about this. So what's gonna be happening in the near future? Well, Mr. Biden plans to first restore and slightly strengthen auto mileage standards to the levels that existed under President Barack Obama, but were weakened during the Trump administration. So we had those higher CAF standards, which Obama set up, and then Trump decided to take us out of because the little America was doing to deal with the climate crisis was offensive to him. And so he needed to instead aid our climate in boiling us alive. After that, his administration is going to draft a set of even more stringent auto pollution rules for both passenger vehicles and heavy duty trucks that are designed to ramp up sales of electric vehicles. And so far, Rayyvana, what seems to be hinted at is that they're going to be aiming for 52 miles per gallon. Although I don't know exactly which vehicles are gonna be required to abide by that and what the timeline for actually establishing it is. But they say that if these new regulations are put into effect, they will eventually cut 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year, about 1/3 of the total annual carbon dioxide pollution produced by the US, and prevent the burning of about 200 billion gallons of gasoline, by some point anyway. So there is more to it. But that's a start. So initially, what is your reaction to Biden's plans he's laying out here?
I mean, I'm hesitant to get excited because I've become very doomer pilled over the past 4 years or so. But just looking at it, it sounds great. Although ideally for me, I'd like to see more in the way of public transportation versus, electric vehicles, just because there are so many, unknowns when it comes to the electric vehicles because it relies on the automotive industry versus public transportation. And I'm from Chicago. We have a wonderful public transportation system. So I'm a subway system supremacist, but I'm very lucky to have that. I know that people in rural suburban areas don't have that kind of infrastructure. Even in cities like LA and all over California, that sort of public transportation just isn't there. So I think I'd like to see more of that than this, but hopefully put both of them together, we can really, make a leap and a bound instead of a small step forward when it comes to fighting the climate catastrophe.
Yeah. Hashtag Make America Chicago again. But anyway, yes. And look, I'm glad that you point out that there are some areas where increased public transportation is not going to be particularly practical in rural areas. Those rural areas, by the way, are also those that are probably least predisposed to be fans of electric cars. But thankfully, there have been some developments over the past year that might be fighting back against that. I mean, when you have the new electric Ford F-150 that's basically a transformer, it can power your house, all that stuff. Maybe that'll convince some conservatives that maybe this isn't a bad thing. I don't know. Like I was just reading about the new electric Hummer, which weighs I think 9,200 pounds and goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. At a certain point, I think conservatives are going to like that. So maybe that will start to convince some people. But that said, there is more that Biden is saying he wants to do. So let's go through this. He's going to sign an executive order that sets a target that half of all vehicles sold in the US be electric by 2030. Notably, that doesn't mean anything. It's a perfectly fine aspirational goal. There's no, it doesn't do anything. It's not like you have to. Now, if it's coupled with, and here are all the ways we're going to subsidize the buying of electric vehicles to get us to that, or perhaps begin to let's roll in year by year a new tax that increases on internal combustion engines. But of course, it's not doing that. It's just an aspirational thing. This is not like how the EU last month, they proposed these changes that would phase out the sale of new gasoline powered engines by 2035. Again, that is lacking a lot of detail and we don't know what the enforcement power is going to be. But if you actually outlaw certain types of vehicles, that's a strong move. Just saying I have a target, that's a vision board. That's all that is at that point. So, and I'm glad, I think manifesting the reality you want is a powerful thing at an individual level, but the stakes are a little bit high here. Now, that said, before we jump into a little bit more commentary, you should know that he is setting that target, but he's also joined by chief executives of the nation's 3 largest automakers, as well as the head of the UAW, the United Auto Workers. The automakers pledge that 40 to 50% of their new car sales will be electric vehicles by 2030, up from just 2% this year, on the condition that Congress passes an infrastructure bill that includes billions of dollars for a national network of electric vehicle charging stations, as well as tax credits to make it cheaper for companies to build the cars and consumers to buy them. So they're sort of setting those targets. Again, those targets don't mean anything, assuming the government actually does something. So it all comes back to the same thing, Rayyvana. Is the government going to do what is necessary, shell out the money, shell out the regulations to get people towards there? You say you're doomer pilled, so I'm assuming you're pessimistic about that.
Yeah, honestly, it feels a lot like, I could pledge to run a marathon every day. It doesn't mean I'm gonna do it. There's nothing holding me accountable for running a marathon every day, just like it doesn't seem there's any accountability for these automotive companies, corporations to actually follow through on their promises. I think what I would like to see is the progressives in Congress, try to assert their power when it comes to the reconciliation bill with stuff relative to climate change, like AOC did yesterday or 2 days ago, where she said she would not vote for a bipartisan bill if there's not the reconciliation bill isn't passed first. So, maybe they could come together, the Progressive Caucus, and use their power to make sure there's accountability here.
Yeah, and there could be. I'm an idiot who doesn't know anything, and I've already laid out a couple different ways that you could really encourage this. So I think they could figure out some things. That said, this is being proposed today, but let's bear in mind the big political thing that we're supposed to be in the middle of is this infrastructure bill. So you've got the bipartisan one, and then supposedly, but probably not, you've got the reconciliation one. So seems like these things could intertwine. Maybe they go well together. So let's take a look at what has actually been done and what would need to be done. So the automakers say, we're gonna push people to buy these cars, but you have to have charging stations available, which makes sense. I owned an electric, or leased an electric car for 3.5 years, but I live in LA where it's about as easy as it can be to charge. But if you're living in a lot of other areas, maybe it's not as easy. So we need to get to parity with gas stations. So Biden has asked Congress for $174 billion to pay for a network of 500,000 charging stations. The pending infrastructure bill, which could pass the Senate as soon as this week, includes $7.5 billion. Now, I'm not great at math, but I'm thinking that's 9,000 stations, which is not as large. So that's not good enough. It's really not good enough. And so what's gonna happen in the reconciliation bill? Are they gonna put in another 160 billion? Do we think that? Do we think Manchin's gonna allow that and Sinema's gonna be cool with that? I think that she's gonna look at your electric car and she's gonna give you a thumbs down. That's my fear. I don't know. So with the intersection with this infrastructure bill, we haven't actually talked about this, Rayyvana. Manchin came out and he was like, I can't make any promises about this reconciliation bill. And then AOC said, I've got the votes to tank the bipartisan one. So I don't know, where are you at on which of those are likely to pass, if anything?
Well, I think that they have to pass together is the narrative we're being told. Whichever one gets voted on first will pass. Hopefully it's at the very least the reconciliation one, because that's the better one. That's the good one that has all the social infrastructure as well, like preschool, daycare, those sorts of things, versus just what they call the traditional infrastructure that is, roads and bridges in the bipartisan one. But even that bill sorely underfunds fixing our crumbling infrastructure. So if I could only see one pass, I would like it to be the reconciliation one. But if we get both of them, that would be ideal. And then we could have, the Mansions and Cinemas do their little song and dance about how bipartisan they are and how they're making Congress work together by tearing it apart.
Yeah. As of right now, I don't know how much I'd be willing to bet that literally anything passes. We'll see. I don't know. Obviously, the stakes are super high, as this story is reminding us. But anyway, it's also a reminder of how much needs to be done. And it's not just the climate change, although that's arguably enough. As I continually try to tell people, and like I find it so crazy that right wingers are so against electric cars, like purely because of a tribal thing. Like Republican congressmen could be for it. Like, why don't they want Ford to make electric cars? But they think of electric cars as being something that libs want. And it seems like if you care about electric cars, you acknowledge climate change. So I guess I should be against it. But no, you really should not, because they're better. They're just better. Even if the climate wasn't warming, they're better. They're faster, they're quieter, they're mechanically simpler, they have lower maintenance costs. There's so many things about them that are better. This is a thing that we can and should be moving towards. And also, it can help a bunch in dealing with climate change. It's not the only contributor to the carbon dioxide, to our overall greenhouse gas emissions, but transportation in 2019 accounted for 29%. So it's a good chunk. That's something that we should do something about. And by the way, Rayyvana, I found in this article, buried in this article, one way that maybe we can get the Republicans on board. There's this little line that says, in addition to his concerns about climate change, Mr. Biden is worried that the United States is trailing China in the manufacturing of electric vehicles. What if we can get people to buy electric cars by demonizing China? Maybe that'll get some right wingers on board.
A little xenophobia to get the right wingers to buy electric vehicles. Or Ford could just put out a line of electric trucks that are red and say MAGA on the hood. Maybe that'll get them to buy it.
Yeah, the only downside is that you can't roll coal with your electric F-150, but you could probably just like have a bonfire in the truck bed. And you could get those Priuses with that, I guess. Anyway, one other quick thing I just want to remind people of, this is something we talked about in a pre-show like 2 weeks ago. While it's great that 3 of the largest auto manufacturers are supposedly standing with Biden in pushing for electric vehicles, I will remind you that Toyota for literally years has been trying to stop governments around the world from pushing towards the EVs, regulations, subsidies, and all of that. They like hybrids, I guess. They make the Prius. They do not want all electric cars. They bet, 15 years ago on hydrogen. It was stupid then, it's stupid now. They probably weren't even honestly doing it. They like the infrastructure that they have. So they're going to be doing whatever they can to lobby against this. So just because there's a couple CEOs with Biden now does not mean that the entire industry is on board. So bear that in mind. Any final thoughts, Rayyvana?
Yeah, I just think that goes to show that at the end of the day, these corporations are out to make money. So we shouldn't be putting all or any of our eggs in that basket.
Exactly. Yeah. All these plans are all great until senators like Tester and Manchin and Sinema get involved, and the industries get involved. So we'll see how that goes. But that said, we are going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about vaccine mandates, which might be coming to a big city near you after this. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. Jay Fergie sent in a super chat saying, Skater Dragon here, just watched David Pakman's interview with Mike Pillow and learned that failing upward is a sign of divine intervention. Welcome, Ray. What's your dragon name?
Oh, Ray of Sunshine Dragon.
So I like that name. You said, I think that someone in the audience suggested it. Is that the name that you want, though?
I like it.
Okay.
I do like it. I want that one.
Well, then consider it official. It has been written. Wayne had asked Rayyvana needs a dragon name. Thoughts? Oh, Pear says, I think Enlightened Dragon is suitable for Ray. It's too late, Pear. Nope, no Enlightened. Anyway, May Money to Building says, once more, happy B-Day to my hubby Nathan. We're gonna see the Van Gogh exhibit, drive to Mount Diablo, smoke some dank and drink some drank. That sounds like a fun day. Happy birthday. Glad that you're gonna be having fun with that. Let's see. Actually, we have some other messages. We'll get to them in a second. So we talked a little bit briefly about your show. We had begun before the show to talk a little bit about you. Give me a little bit about you. We haven't spoken. We'll get to know each other, but tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're bringing to this whole thing.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Ray, obviously from Chicago. Lived here my whole life. Best city in the world. Midwestern supremacist. Can I get some opes in the Twitch chat? But yeah, I'm a law student. I work in immigration law. I represent asylum seekers. I'm starting a new position working in disability law, representing people who have been discriminated against in housing because of their disabilities. I worked in Congress briefly, didn't love it.
Can you say who you worked for?
I don't want to dox myself. So okay, I'm not going to.
Totally fine. Don't even worry about it. I was just curious. By the way, I'm seeing a lot of opes in the chat.
Nice.
Okay, that's awesome. So really fast, what got you into politics? What was like the initial thing that made you think, maybe this is something I'm into?
I'm not lying about this because I work for TYT now. I stumbled across a TYT video on YouTube and just fell down the rabbit hole and never came back out. So
that's funny. Do you remember what the video was about?
It was about the election. It was about like one of the debates early on in the last presidential election, because I had always just been like tangentially interested in politics before that. But that was when I became that's when my deprived relationship with politics really began.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I think the 2016 election I think was one of the biggest things of the past 2 decades to get people involved. So that makes sense. RC Tycoon in the Twitch chat says, you can't violate Rayyvana's HIPAA. That's true, I apologize. We need to be careful about that. It's a serious problem. Forbesilla in the super chat says, in love with Rayyvana's deeper voice, starlet 100%.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice, Forbesilla, thank you. Textan says, in regard to regulating mileage in miles per gallon is silly at this point in time. The regulation should be 0 gallons per mile by year 20, whatever. Also, Rayyvana is 100% correct that we need public transport everywhere. Texan, yeah, I agree overall. I mean, we should be going towards a totally gasoline-free future. In the short term, it's still beneficial, I guess. Anyway, Asimov's Prophet says, John, please start promoting the infrastructure petition. So feel free to let me know exactly which one you're referring to. If you want to DM me, I would love to look into it. That said, we have got so much more news coming. Some of it positive, maybe, no promises, but we'll be back after this. Okay, everybody, let's jump right back into the news. You might have heard recently that New York City became the first gigantic city to have some sort of vaccine mandate, with them requiring workers and customers to show proof of at least one dose of the vaccine for indoor dining and other activities, including things like going to the gym, stuff like that. Well, it was just New York City for a bit, but LA does not want to be outdone. So LA is apparently considering doing it as well. Now, before I give you the details on that, I do want to let you know about the COVID situation here in LA because it's not good. Let's take a look at a brief overview of the cases throughout the pandemic. We're over there on the right, and yeah, we've gone up to close to 4,000 cases a day. For comparison's sake, like 2 months ago, I think we had 150. So it is many, many times worse. It's still not as bad as the dark winter, but it's about as bad as that first big wave that hit us in the middle of last year. So with that as the context, LA is now considering a proposal to require proof of COVID-19 inoculation as a condition of entry at a host of indoor public spaces in what, if passed, would be the widest ranging vaccination verification effort in the city yet. So what does that mean? What's a public place? Well, that includes things like restaurants, bars, retail stores, gyms, spas, movie theaters, stadiums, and concert venues. I mean, I notably do not leave my house much in the best of times, but that feels like the only reasons I ever would. So it seems like a lot of places. So Rayyvana, we had New York, now maybe LA. It's not done yet, but what do you think about this as a strategy?
I'll be honest, I just assumed this is how it was gonna be initially. When I got my vaccine, when I got my second dose, I put my vaccine card in my wallet and kept it there because I was assuming I'd have to show it if I was going to the gym without a mask, or which I still don't, or if I was going to a restaurant, or I had to fly out to California earlier in the summer, and I figured most certainly I'd have to show it there. But it just wasn't like that. It just seems like the most intuitive way to do it, though, because otherwise you don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. You don't know if you're at a restaurant and the person at the table next to you maybe didn't get the vaccine, but because it's not like you can just look at someone and tell if they've got vaccinated. I mean, you can always try to stick a magnet to them because you get magnetized, or see if your 5G gets better the closer you get to them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just sort of encouraging people who haven't been vaccinated to go around maskless in public just because there's no way to prove it without having these mandates.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like here in LA, you would imagine there had been something like that, but no, just for the longest time, there'd be signs saying, if you're not vaccinated, we are gonna still need you to wear a mask, that's a choice. It's like setting up an honor system in Mos Eisley or something. It's like, but you get the whole thing is that people aren't trustworthy on this. So why are we having this game? But anyway, this is, if it were to happen, this would basically mean you need to get vaccinated for pretty much anything. I'm sure you can come up with a bunch of stuff. Like this doesn't include schools, I suppose. I'm trying to think of other parks, I guess. I don't know, but for most things that you would want to go out, it probably does involved. Now, I want to give you a quote from the LA City Council President Martinez talking about this, why he thinks it's important. Says, enough is enough already. Hospital workers are exhausted. Moms who have put aside their careers are tired, and our kids cannot afford the loss of another school year. We have 3 vaccines that work and are readily available, so what's it going to take? Our kids are about to return to school, and the unvaccinated are putting their lives at risk every day. Ask your questions, talk to your doctor, and get the vaccine. Let's put this behind us. So I have not been watching Fox today. I'm assuming they're probably freaking out about this. They were already freaking out about New York. So I guess I suppose I want something like a prediction, Rayyvana. Do you think Chicago is going to go this way? Are we going to see this begin to spread? Obviously, Biden said they're not going to do this nationally, but do you think this will become more common for cities?
Honestly, I think that I could see Lori Lightfoot doing it just to like annoy me personally, because she allowed Lollapalooza to happen a week ago, and now you would have to wear a mask to go into a restaurant because that's just the kind of mayor she is. But I do think that it would be possible here. We have a pretty good vaccination rate in this city, thankfully. But I would still like to see that because it would make me feel safer. It would end it would shorten the length of the virus eventually, because if people want to go out, people want to live their lives. So if you have to prove that you're vaccinated to go get $1 margs at Chili's, there's gonna be people who are motivated by that. They're gonna do it.
I did not even know that that kind of deal was available. Probably not in LA, but I'm gonna have to go take a look. Anyway, we're gonna turn to a slightly different angle on this. I'm predicting there's gonna be a bad right-wing reaction to it, and what do you know? It's already here. So let's jump into this. Majorie Green is very worried about mandatory vaccinations, in particular, federal government employees coming to your house and jabbing you in the side of the neck. It's not gonna happen. That's crazy, but she's still worried about it. That said, she does have a solution. Let's hear her out.
And one more thing on that, you lucky people here in Alabama might get a knock on your door because I hear Alabama might be one of the most unvaccinated states in the nation. Well, Joe Biden wants to come talk to you guys. He's gonna be sending one of his police state friends to your front door to knock on the door, take down your name, your address, your family members' names, your phone numbers, your cell phone numbers, probably ask for your social security number and whether you've taken the vaccine or not. Yeah, well, what they don't know is in the South, we all love our Second Amendment rights. And we're not real big on strangers showing up on our front door, are we? They might not like the welcome they get.
Okay, so Rayyvana, I'm kind of an idiot. Whatever point she's making is over my head. I can't get what she's saying there. How do you read that?
She wants to shoot people coming to vaccinate. She wants to shoot nurses. Is that what the implication there was? I also like her saying that the federal government is gonna come ask you for your social security number. Does she know where social security numbers come from? I'm pretty sure the federal government already has my address and my social and knows my name. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, they might get my cell phone number. I think they have it. I think they probably, I love that. She thinks that like your social security number is just like, it's a natural growth on your scalp and you need to cover it. You don't want the government to ever see it or whatever. But of course, the most important point there is we love our Second Amendment. They may not like the welcome that they get. Now, of course, you have to bear in mind, nobody's coming to force you to get vaccinated. I don't think they're coming at all, but if they do now, someone that they very much respect, Majorie Green, has told them it's really funny and maybe patriotic to threaten them with a firearm, which is great in the time that we're in. I've often looked around America throughout 2021 and thought there aren't enough threats of political violence. I think we could use a bit more, and she's working overtime in only this one area to make sure that we get that. Now, I don't know if anyone's gonna act on it. I hope that they don't, but it's her go-to move is, Pelosi deserves a bullet in the head. Some random bureaucrat who's making, like $6 an hour, you should threaten them with a shotgun if they knock on your door. I don't know, what do you think about this turn towards political violence, Rayyvana?
Oh, I just have a very strong feeling that if anyone does feel so emboldened by her rhetoric and carries out that kind of violence, they'll blame it on Antifa. It was Antifa. But also a good American patriot would do it, but also it was Antifa somehow, because that's how their brains work.
100%. Now, I guess another point that she made that is, I think, understandably not gonna get as much attention because it's not about shooting a bureaucrat, was she talked about Alabama being one of the most unvaccinated states. And she said it with a smile and they clapped. So again, this isn't about stopping you from getting vaccinated. They're not doctors. They're not encouraging you one way or the other, except they think it's awesome that nobody's vaccinated. Anyway, so let's see how that's working for them. So here's the recent COVID case and hospitalization numbers in Alabama. Hey, what do you know? The hospitalizations are rocketing back up. They have already matched the earlier wave in 2020. Will they get all the way up to the big peak of the dark winter? I don't know. But they're not listening to me, they're listening to her. So I'm gonna say probably. And let's see how it's working out in terms of deaths. Well, the Alabama Department of Public Health said on Monday that only 1.2% of all of their nearly 3,000 deaths reported since early January have been linked to breakthrough cases. So you have a very, very low chance of dying if you become vaccinated. Doctors there say about 97% of their COVID-19 patients are unvaccinated, a sign that the vaccine works in preventing serious illness and death. Death of her constituents, death of people who support her politically, who probably really like her, including younger people. Every day there's more information about the percentage of cases that are coming from younger people, and she doesn't care. She's watching the body bags get filled and just thinking it's the most delightful thing ever, Rayyvana.
It was very dystopian to hear her say that and then have like the crowd go, Alabama #1, roll tide, all that nonsense. Like, come on. I really, all of them had to get vaccinated to go to public school when they were kids. They've all had vaccines for other things. Like, what? She's also, they're afraid of the federal government. You're cheering on part of the federal government. It's so frustrating. I wish I could grab them all and shake some sense into them.
Yeah. By the way, we didn't want to play any more of her voice than we had to, but she goes on later to say, she randomly starts talking about how Donald Trump donated his paychecks or whatever, which generally he did while he was president, although there is an investigation of the last few. It doesn't seem like he did, but anyway, I don't care. She did say, oh, but Biden's taking his paychecks. Well, hold on. What about you? Marjorie, you get paid. But are you taking your paychecks? Because apparently that would be the thing a traitor would do. They should donate it. And she's rich, by the way. She was handed a business. She's very well. So I would love to find out. I don't want to violate her HIPAA rights. I'm not asking her directly, but is she taking? If anybody wants to leak anything to Ken Klippenstein, maybe we can find out. By the way, one other point about the vaccinations and mandatory vaccinations and stuff like that. So Biden is considering requiring vaccines for active duty troops. As Rayyvana alluded to earlier, this is not new. You get vaccinated for any number of different illnesses. After all, we send our soldiers everywhere in the world, whether they're wanted or not. There's a lot of local illnesses, so we do vaccinate them against those. But also, in the wake of a campaign in New York City to both encourage via like gift cards and things like that, but also requiring vaccines now, there has been a 40% surge in vaccination there in the wake of that. At least 80,000 New Yorkers got their first shots over the last week, which ended Saturday. So it looks like this has the effect that you would want and expect when you require it, people start to get it. So good news, at least in that regard.
I'm vaccinated. I did not get a gift card. Joe Biden, I will be sending you an invoice for one gift card for my vaccines, at least $20 to Amazon, so I can get more multicolored lights for my apartment.
Exactly. I mean, and by the way, a $100 gift card that buys a lot of margaritas at Chili's. I hear.
That's anyway. 100. That's at least 100.
That's too much, probably. It's not safe. Anyway, by the way, I apologize in advance. I've got just a little bit more on her, but I'm gonna burden you with this. I'm just curious what Rayyvana thinks about this. There are these weird rituals that we go through in the run up to people running for president, even years out. We're never really not in a presidential race. And one of the stupid things that people do to show that they're going to be running is going to the Iowa State Fair for some reason, primaries and caucuses and all that. So you know who's going this year? Majorie Green is going to the Iowa State Fair, which does not mean that she's running for president, but I don't think she's going for the fried butter. She could be going for this reason. So, Rayyvana, what do you think?
I mean, she might be entering herself into the dumbest hog competition this year. I'm not sure, but but I really don't foresee a world where the Republican Party moves past its sexism and has a woman candidate in 2020 for 2024. Like I just really think that they are that misogynistic and sexist that even the epitome of the crazy that they love because she's a woman, can't have that, which is great for the rest of us, but
I wonder about that. Like there's some other issues that I want to bring up, but in terms of her being a woman, is she sufficiently opposed in general to other women, feminism, stuff like that? Like as much as guys love not feminine. Like they hate women. Don't they like women who seem to hate women in some ways? Like, does that give, like, people love us, they love excuses, they love get out of jail free cards. Supporting her makes it seem as if they support a woman because she is technically a woman. She just, sets herself in opposition to a lot of different types of women in a lot of different areas. Does that potentially get her across the finish line with conservative men?
I mean, I could see it giving her a little more of a boost, but at the end of the day, I can still picture a Republican voter, she agrees with me on all the policies, but she's a woman, and when she gets her period, she's gonna nuke every country, so we can't vote for her.
Oh my God. By the way, I just want to point out that pigs are intelligent and emotional animals. They can learn a lot. Anyway, I'm just gonna point that out. Anyway, so here's another issue. Anyone who runs for president is going to be going up against Trump, seemingly. Like, it's not a sure thing that he's gonna run, but he sure seems to want us to think that he is. And even sort of like dipping your toe in the waters to see what people would think, there is a chance that Trump will see that, become insanely angry at you and turn on you. So, like, whether it's her or if it's DeSantis or Abbott, how do they test the waters? How do they figure out if they should run when they don't know if he's gonna run, knowing that there's so much risk? I don't know, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm sorry, I was thinking about the pig thing. I'll be honest, I missed a little bit of what you said there at the end. But I mean, there is, I really don't, I don't see Trump running in 2024 because I don't think that his fragile ego could stand to lose again. Also, I think that he would probably not want to be president again unless they promise to reinstate his Twitter account. Otherwise, I think he likes just crashing weddings at Mar-a-Lago. But it is there is, like we saw with oh my God, the hillbilly elegy guy. I can't remember his name.
JD Vance.
JD Vance accidentally criticized Trump a little too harshly, and that was a major issue for his campaign. So you have to, if you're a Republican, you have to be careful. You have to sufficiently praise Daddy Trump and make sure that you're not making the wrong moves. So they're definitely they're walking a thin rope. The Republican Party candidates are.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I will say that I think that he will run just because I get the fragile ego, but I think he desperately wants people to be paying attention to him and all that. But I think the funniest thing would be if he doesn't end up running, but he waits so long to make it clear, and he scares the other Republicans away from early campaigning because they don't want him to jump in and then turn on them, that it's 2 months before the convention and nobody's running. Like, nobody's actually willing to run yet, and they're all wondering, can I start my campaign? I would love to see him totally destroy the entire field. But that said, I personally think as of right now, and I reserve the right to change my mind, that he will run, but we will have to see. That said, we are gonna jump into our second break, see what's going on out there in the audience. When we come back, GOP official in Texas mocks COVID online. I think you can finish that story for you, but we're gonna break into it. And then the counterattack on Cori Bush has begun. We'll break that down after this. Biting Kale in the YouTube chat says only Ivanka gets to call him Daddy Trump. I will say, I didn't like it, Rayyvana. I didn't like it one bit. Anyway, okay, so let's see what's going on out there. The Progressive Carpenter says, hey, Progressive Carpenter says, hey, John and Rayyvana, I need a truck for work and I'm excited about the electric pickups coming out. I hope they are cheap enough to buy and not just cheap to make. Definitely having a bonfire in the bed. They don't look cheap to me. I don't know about the F-150 and I'm not a truck guy anyway, although now that I do woodworking, I kind of wish that I did have one. But that said, seems pretty impressive. You can, they just fit in all these extra features. It just seems really cool. I'm not interested in that. I wish that they would make an electric version of my car, the Scion IQ, which I could fit on this desk right now. I just want small electric cars. That's all I want.
I was actually thinking about the rolling coals, sorry. But I was thinking about that. And you could just have someone lay in the bed of the truck with a vape and just blow vape out the back of the truck to, signal to people that that you're a tough guy and you're driving a big truck.
Oh my God, I just had a great idea. So you know how like there are people who are going to doctors and asking for some way to like get vaccinated but have nobody find out? Like they kind of want the vaccine but they don't want people to know. I bet you could sell something that you stick to the bottom of an electric F-150 that just makes some like exhaust come out. Because they want the speed, but they don't want you to think that like, come on, I'm not a woman driving an electric vehicle or whatever. Anyway. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Alyssa Burdick says, Milwaukee Dragon here. Love you, Ray of Sunshine Dragon. That's very nice, Alyssa.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you too.
Jesus Martinez says, hey guys, love the show and love TYT. Keep up the gear work. And I would like to claim the name Muay Thai Dragon. You can. I would try to keep it from you, but you'd probably beat me up. So Mandy says, Ope, can I squeeze right past you here with a super chat? Minnesota. Is that a thing?
Oh, excuse me. Pardon me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been to Chicago a few times. I went to some political science conventions there and I did a show there, but that's about it. It seemed nice though. Do you like the pizza? Anyway, Kenny from Philly says, awesome to see you here, Ray of Sunshine Dragon.
Oh, thank you.
Captain Pollywog Vanderbeef says, things that blow my mind that these people don't want to be sheep, the MAGA people. They then adopt where we go one, we go all, literal sheep. Yeah, and like I pointed out, they don't want the vaccine because they don't want to be sheep, but they're taking literal sheep anti-worm medicine. I don't understand a lot about America. The more I learn about America, the less I know about America. Alter the Ego says, as a Chili's worker, Applebee's is the $1 Marg restaurant. We have expensive weak drinks. Haha, stop making my life harder by spreading misinformation. The Ego doesn't like making margaritas, Rayyvana. Anyway, okay, let's see what's going on over on Twitch. Metal Kitty Mom gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you for that. Morphalin cheered 100 bits. Let's see, Skip the D Block Dragon, which we might, we'll see, gifted 2 tier 1 subs as well. Metal Kitty Mom cheered 1,500 bits. Thank you for that. Dragon Pool 420 subscribed for 3 months, says 3 months on Twitch with you, 4-eyed, no horn, flying purple political people eater. But me and my chimichangas are not new here. Whew. That was a difficult one to read, but thank you for being with us. I appreciate that. Dented Head Ed subscribed for 3 months, says, been watching daily while recovering from multiple strokes and brain surgeries to remove a tumor. You guys have definitely helped me stay informed during all this. Thanks. Thank you so much. Glad to be able to help out a little bit. And that said, we're gonna get back to it with some more news after this. Okay, everybody, hold on to your butts. It's about to get tragic. At least I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but from my point of view, as we launch this next story. I regret to have to bring you the latest in a new genre of news in the pandemic in America, and that is people who regrettably pass as a result of COVID, who have a documented online history of making light of the illness. And look, I cover this story not to make light of the personal tragedy that this person's family must be going through. I've lost someone in my family, I understand how terrible it is, but to hopefully offer it up as a cautionary tale that will stop other families from needlessly experiencing this same tragedy. So that said, let's talk about this individual, a GOP official from Texas, H. Scott Apley, whose Facebook page was filled with anti-mask, anti-vaccine content until he was suddenly hospitalized on Sunday. So he died in a local hospital around 3 a.m. Wednesday morning, according to a GoFundMe page set up to help his family with expenses. He was admitted to the facility in Galveston, Texas on Sunday with pneumonia-like symptoms and was hooked up to a ventilator as his condition worsened. His wife was also infected. And you can see a picture of the individual here. He had apparently posted memes questioning the wisdom of getting vaccinated just 5 days before he passed from COVID. He, according to the GoFundMe page, it says he leaves behind his wife, Melissa, who is COVID positive, as well as their infant son, Reed. So far, they've reached $15,000 of their $30,000 goal, and they ask for more to help the family get through a difficult period. So not only is he leaving behind a COVID positive wife, but also has a new child. All of these or not necessary for it to be a tragedy. It's a tragedy no matter what, but seems kind of worse as a result of that, Rayyvana. But I'm sure you've come across other stories like this.
Yeah, there was the I can't remember his name, the co-founder of Turning Point USA, who went to the Trump rally, had posted his last tweet was an anti-mask meme, and then he died of COVID like the very next day. But I'll be honest, I've run out of empathy for these people. I feel sorry for his wife, who now has to be a single mother. I feel sorry for his child, who now has to grow up without a father. But at the end of the day, he chose the Republican Party. He chose conspiracy, bigotry, hatred over his family. And the conservatives love to say, play stupid games or play stupid games, win stupid prizes when it comes to things where that absolutely does not apply, like a black person being harassed by the police for the crime of being black. But I think it's pretty apt here. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Choose not to believe in wearing masks, choose not to believe in COVID, choose not to believe in the vaccine. You get COVID, it's what happens. Although I did find his Facebook today, and he also had retweeted a Glenn Greenwald tweet making fun of stopping the spread of misinformation online. And I couldn't not find that absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't. I try not to get into any of that, but yeah, I don't understand the war against people trying to stop misinformation. It seems to me like a core element of journalism is trying to make sure that people get accurate information and don't get filled up with misinformation. But I guess that's controversial now. A lot of things are controversial that don't make sense to me, but anyway, yeah, he had been. It was his political identity, and it's impossible to say whether this one individual, this Texas GOP official, would have taken this up as his political identity if he wasn't surrounded by people in right-wing media and politics doing the same. I know that they all consider themselves not to be sheep. It's weird that they all have the exact same opinions about all of this, but I want to give you a few examples of how this manifested itself. Back in May, he posted an invitation for a mask burning being held at a bar in Cincinnati, commenting, "I wish I lived in that area." A couple weeks earlier, he posted a news article about giveaways and incentives meant to encourage people to get vaccinated, writing, "Disgusting." Aptly also railed against so-called vaccine passports, which restrict high risk activities such as indoor dining to the fully vaccinated. Recently, he suggested that mask mandates in Germany were akin to Nazism. And when former Baltimore Health Commissioner Leana Wen celebrated good news this spring about the Pfizer vaccine's efficacy, a seemingly outraged aptly called her, quote, "an absolute enemy of a free people." I want to give you one more. This was posted just a week before his death. Posted in, I think it's a repost of something else somebody had posted, but it says, "In 6 months, we've gone from the vax ending the pandemic to you can still get COVID even if vaxxed, to you can still pass COVID on to others even if vaxxed, to you can still die of COVID even if vaxxed, to the unvaxxed are killing the vaxxed." Okay, that is not what happened. That's not the process. We always knew that it wasn't perfect protection. Literally everybody knew that. Kids knew that. And yes, the vax could end the pandemic if we don't have an anti-intellectual movement that believes that opening yourself up to a fatal infection is the most patriotic thing that a person can do, and successfully convinces tens of millions of Americans to do that. That was a condition that we should have added, I think. It was irresponsible of us to not point that out. And look, again, I believe that empathy is a renewable resource. I try to keep myself stocked up with at least a little bit. I still want these people not to die. It strikes me as weird that people like Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson don't give a damn about aptly dying from COVID. Why is it that a bunch of commies care more about the death of a conservative than all these right wingers? Is that weird? I think it's weird. I don't know. Any other thoughts about this?
Yeah, I would just like, and I know this is monumentous of me to ask from conservatives for a tiny bit of consistency. Like, you got to pick a lane. Is COVID not real, or is the vaccine not working against COVID? You can't have both, because the vaccine can't be ineffective against a disease that's not real. So just pick one so that my brain does not feel so broken all the time.
Yeah, and if your actual belief was they lied to us about the vaccine, it won't protect us. Yeah, you're like Rayyvana's pointing out, then you seem to be saying that it's a massive betrayal because of the stakes. You lied to us about something. We don't get mad about being lied to about things that don't matter. We care about things that do matter. So then why do you then not support social distancing, a lockdown, mask, literally anything? If it's such a huge betrayal, I've always wondered that. We talk often about Marjorie Green's like Fauci lied and people died thing. He told us we didn't need to wear masks early on. Okay, so he was wrong. So you should wear a mask, right? But you don't want to wear a mask? Then what do you care if he lied to you? Like, it's just this weird inconsistency. And this is the movement that prides themselves on lifting up intellectual gladiators armed with blades of logic like Ben Shapiro. But it all just falls apart if you just flick it a little bit.
Well, you can't ask them to wear masks because that's tyranny. And you also can't tell them to get vaccinated because then you're violating their HIPAA rights.
That's true. That's true. I saw someone tweeted, I said I'd die for my country. I didn't say I'd be mildly inconvenienced for it. Again, I don't understand anything about the timeline we're in. But one thing I do understand about the timeline is the timeline of shows on the TYT network. So before we launch into our last story of the first hour, I did want to let you know that immediately after the damage report, so in about 40, let's say 39 minutes, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey will be starting. Dr. Jonathan Metzl will be, that's exciting. Co-host Dr. Jonathan Metzl will be joining Rashad for that, and Andrew Ragusa will be coming on for debate. So that should be fun, that should be spicy. You can go to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT to watch Indisputable as soon as this show is over. And once you're done with that, that'll have been a little bit of time for Rayyvana to go get a little bit of coffee, maybe a bagel, take a look at the news, and then Rayyactions will be starting. So Rayyvana, tell us a little bit about what's gonna be on your show in just a few hours.
Yeah, so like I said before, at my show or on my show, we laugh at the news because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Of course, we've got Charlie Kirk coming back because he can't stop making a fool of himself. We've got Trump wants his supporters to carry around cards to prove that they support him, business cards. But lots of fun stuff. We're gonna laugh at Majorie Taylor Green some more. So yeah, come check it out if you haven't seen enough of my face already. But I promise you haven't. So you should stick around and watch it after Indisputable.
Agreed. That also is Indisputable. And that's it. I did want to remind people, by the way, for the past few days, we have been selling the newest edition of Shop TYT, the Purple Dragon Squad shirt. So today, for the first time, I'm not wearing it. I'm wearing the classic, but you can go to shoptyt.com and pick that up to show solidarity with those of us whose hair is at least marginally purple. It is rapidly fading out. I don't understand why. I put on so much, but anyway. With that said, we're gonna get to something at least as important as my hue of my hair. Let's jump into this last story. Just yesterday, we, and thankfully many people, were giving Representative Cori Bush a great deal of credit for her over the weekend protest that seems to have been the major thing that led to a 2-month extension of the eviction moratorium. Much still needs to be done. The debt isn't going away under the current system, but at least millions of Americans are not being thrown out on the streets as of today. But that said, the fact that people were crediting Cori Bush with this, what do you think's gonna happen in America as a result of that? A progressive, a woman of color getting credit? She must be destroyed. And so multiple people are coming for her, including Fox News, wanting you to know that Cori Bush, Democrat demanding eviction halt, was sued for not paying rent back in 2015. It says in the article, she's been evicted at least 2 other times, according to a letter that she sent last week to her House colleagues, urging them to extend the moratorium before leaving for August recess, noting that she was previously forced to live in her car with her 2 children. So just a little heads up to Cameron Cawthorn, Fox News reporter. It's not the scoop you think it is if she sent the letter to them about it. But anyway, he closes saying, Representative Bush's office did not respond to Fox News' request on how the 2015 lawsuit against her for not paying rent impacts her views on the eviction moratorium. Although I think we could speculate. Rayyvana, what do you think? For or against if she has herself had issues in this area. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, obviously, if she's been evicted in the past, then she wants everyone else to have to suffer that same sort of fate. It's just so absurd, and it's as if like Fox News thinks that this doesn't. It makes her more relatable. It makes her more of an authority on what she's speaking on, and it just shows that through her hard work and her dedication, she was able to become a congresswoman after having experienced all this tragedy, and this tragedy informs her views and her passion. So it really only makes Fox News look like they just want to attack a strong progressive Black woman, and not like they're very cared about the sanctity of protecting landlords and property management companies.
Yeah, and look, one would think, if they could get past the fact that she's a Black woman, which of course they can't, like this is the sort of thing they like to pretend that they would do. After all, those damn coastal elites have ignored the struggles of working Americans, regular classic Americans, as they call them now, just means white. But anyway, I think that was it was the 1990 speaker. He was talking about that yesterday. But anyway, so she's actually delivering, but she sucks. She's a commie. They don't like her. No, they like people like Majorie Green, who again would say, I'm here to fix the problems of the people who've been ignored, those who have been silenced. She's a rich woman who comes in and then just does stunts that have nothing to do with any of the crises that are actually facing people. They don't understand what to do with a person like Cori Bush, who has made promises of what she's going to do, the people she's going to advocate for, and she's actually doing it once she's in office. It's like something out of like this doesn't look like anything to me. Like Westworld, they don't know what to actually do, how to respond.
Yeah, it's just awful, and to strip Cori Bush of her accomplishment there, like she sat outside the Capitol for, was it 4 days protesting this, when the rest of, or a majority of Congress went on vacation. She was out there actually fighting to give a voice to the voiceless. And I mean, who is more silenced than the unhoused in America? It's hard to imagine a more marginalized group, and her providing, her own experience and bringing that fight and making that change is too much for conservatives. They don't want to give a Black woman that credit. They would much rather give credit to Majorie Taylor Green, who sits on her butt all day and tweets.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, Jen Psaki also said it wasn't Cori Bush, it was Nancy Pelosi. So,
oh my God,
that's cool. She's getting it from all sides. It's fun being a progressive in America. You get attacked from all directions. Anyway, that said, that is unfortunately all the time we have for our first hour. So if you're on our linear platforms, thank you for watching. If you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, we've got more news for you. We're gonna take a short break, but be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone. How's it going over there on Twitch and on YouTube? We're back, myself and Rayyvana. First time as a co-host on the show. Rayyvana, it's been exciting to have you on. We were on the same episode of TYT last week, but I was on the first hour. We didn't have a crossover. What was it like being on a power panel last Friday?
It was so much fun, and Jake and JR were really nice. Even though Cenk made fun of me for having a crush on Hassan, but it was a good time. It was very exciting. I mean, I used to watch TYT all the time, so like, yeah, I still do, honestly. But like being able to be on it was a very surreal experience.
Yeah, I remember. So you probably don't know this, but for like 5 or 6 years before I started working here, I listened from way back when I was in college. So the first time I came and did an internship. And like the first time, like I was in a room and Cenk walked in, it was very surreal, like in seeing JR and all that. Anyway, okay, so let's see what's going on out there in the audience before we jump back into some news. John Campbell Rees says Big Pharma makes a fortune from the common cold, which is a coronavirus. They're terrified the COVID-19 vaccine might protect people from other coronaviruses, thus lose money on cold treatments. Look, admittedly, I have watched every episode of House multiple times, but I'm not quite competent enough to say whether that's true or whether it would cross over to be able to do that. I will say I have not been particularly sick in the last year and a half, but I've also been avoiding people to a greater degree than I even normally am. I don't know. Have you had much of a experience with sickness over the past year? Maybe it's working.
I actually, I get colds very easily, but I also used to work in a school. I worked as a teacher, so kids sneeze on you, they cough on you all the time. So I would get sick constantly. Elementary school and middle schoolers. But then I didn't get sick like the whole pandemic. Got vaccinated, went out to San Diego, hung out with my friends at the beach, and then immediately got a cold. So I definitely feel like staying inside is the move because it was a very unpleasant cold.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for telling us that. Unfortunately, you telling us that you get sick often is a violation of both my and your HIPAA rights. So the show's probably gonna be canceled now. Anyway, Vendetta says Rayyvana's a boss. Will be tuning into her show today. Hey, yay! That's awesome. Devontae says been heartbroken.
It was tough. Actually, after the TYT coverage, I was talking about it a bit with some community members, and it's tough to. It's tough at first. It sucks. There's no way around it. It sucks, but I can't stop. I'm here in Chicago. Marie Newman didn't win the first time she ran against Dan Lipinski, and he was just awful establishment Democrat. And Cori Bush, she lost by a very wide margin the first time that she ran against Lacey Clay. Now both of those women are in Congress. Also, it's I think that if Nina Turner ran in an election year, it'd be higher turnout in those primaries. More time to do ground game. I think that it's not over. It's a setback, but it's not done. The fight goes on.
Yeah, Nina Turner does not. She's a lot of things. She doesn't strike me as a quitter. So yeah, I could see her being back. Oh, by the way, and we're on a day to demonstrate this principle. Jessica Cisneros, very close race down against Cuellar. She announced today she's running again. She might very well win. So yeah, look, these losses are devastating, and I've covered a lot of elections. Like Cenk and I, we covered every single primary the last time around, 2018, and there were a lot of devastating losses. People who are absolutely awesome that lost, but we also got to cover AOC's win together. So sometimes it does work out, and when it works out, it is worth the world, as Cori Bush helped to demonstrate this week. Okay, finally, Toasted Dragon says, I have a huge amount of empathy for these people who are dying after refusing the vaccine, but at a certain point, I can't force these people to take care of themselves. Yeah, you can't force, but I'm gonna keep trying. I mean, I've been trying for years to get people to care about climate change. Nobody even watches the videos, but you just gotta keep doing it. Anyway, finally, Nicole Smith says they buy firearms for protection, they buy security systems for their property, but they won't take a free shot or wear a mask to protect anyone. Shaking my head. Yep.
They're gonna shoot the virus out of the air with their guns.
That's true. If it was a macro virus, maybe. Ask Captain Janeway. But Yeah, and guns have side effects. You know, some people shoot their spouse in the middle of the night, but that doesn't stop them. Anyway, okay, with that, we have time for a couple more stories. So let's jump into this directly into this video.
A uniform does not give you the right to be racist.
Your elders, because you're disrespecting me.
You're
now.
disrespecting her.
You want to bet? When you're in America, you better learn our language.
You don't come up on somebody.
You want to bet?
Yeah,
I was in the
military
too.
too.
Seriously?
Yes, I was.
Not like
You were
us.
very racist to that woman.
No, I was not.
You should just leave.
No, you should leave and get her away
You
from
should
me.
leave.
Or
I'm not
she's
leaving
gonna
until
have a
you leave.
problem.
You should leave.
Just get her away from me. Roger that. It's called the First Amendment, ma'am.
He's just losing it. That's it. He's gone.
Bye.
Well, the good thing is he told me where he works, so that's the next thing I'm
Bye-bye.
gonna call.
God bless you. Go to church, will you? You need some prayer.
God has
Bye.
nothing to do with
Is
your
this like
actions.
in that show?
Okay, I'll
What
do
What
the
do you
same.
do?
I'll do the
Is
same.
there a
No
talk
problem.
show? Yeah.
Bye.
Hello.
Bye.
You're a very racist man.
You want to bet?
Why would you say that to
I'm
her?
a
Just
Christian. I'll tell you why.
because you couldn't
Because they
communicate with her?
murdered 343
Please step
of my
back.
fellow firemen. That's why. September 11th, 2001. That's why.
That has nothing to do with
You
her.
want to bet?
That has nothing to do
Learn
with her.
English. It's America. It's
So
not
get a
Spain.
manager or call the
And
police.
it's not Mexico. Get away from me.
I'm not.
Look, get away from me, man. I said get away from me. Get away from me.
If you're close enough that I can do that,
Get
then you're too
away
close.
from me.
Now I know that your first reaction after watching that video is to attack this man, but he is doing an important service. Too many forget about all that the Spanish got away with on 9/11. So, I don't know. Okay, so it's a male Karen, a firefighter at a Walmart in Nebraska. It's also the most cordial interaction at that Walmart in Nebraska that day, simultaneously. So what you saw there was a guy who had been harassing an employee for not speaking English. I thought for a second the guy was speaking Arabic, maybe? Because the guy was confused about 9/11, but he's confused about a great many things. Apparently, you cannot be a racist, Rayyvana, if you're a firefighter or if you're a Christian. I think those things have some correlation actually. But anyway, what do you think about what you saw in that video?
I think that he used the conservative trump card. They called him racist for being racist, and he said, "No, I'm not. I'm not being a racist." Just denying what everyone is seeing with their own eyes. It's conservatives' favorite move. But he says that he's an LA firefighter. He's in Nebraska. Why was he at 9/11? Was he there? Did he actually see this? Maybe he knows more information about us. Maybe he saw it was actually Spain that did it.
Yeah, look, if he actually served and was in the towers on 9/11 and got out, I get why you would be really affected by that. Doesn't excuse being racist and doubling down once you realize you're being filmed. It doesn't explain how your answer to literally every question would be wanna bet. Like, you're a racist. No, I'm not. Wanna bet? That's not how bets work. I don't you seem biased. I don't think I'm gonna be able to acquire information with that because now money's on the line. So I don't know. It's not a fair bet anyway. But that said, it also wasn't the end of the interaction. So let's get to a little bit more of what happened in this Walmart.
You should be shaken.
I
When
am.
someone doesn't speak English and we can't communicate in Los Angeles, guess what happens? Honest, people die. People go bye-bye.
Rude, he's like walking up on us and stuff.
He actually has gotten to my
Seriously?
face
Now
quite
you're
a few
gonna
times.
lie?
No,
Okay, so if you're in a fire and you're not speaking English, then you can die. So presumably the fireman busts into the burning room and he's like, "Do you need help?" And they say, "See," and he says, "I don't know what you want out of me," and he just walks away, I guess. I don't understand how any of that's supposed to work. I'm not a fireman though.
Everyone who doesn't speak English has died in a fire. There's anyone who lives in non-English speaking countries, you better hope and pray that your house never sets on fire, because that's it. That's the end. Apparently, he's a fireman. I trust him. He knows what he's talking about.
We're gonna go to one more video of him, and then there's a broader thing I'd like to jump into. So here's the last bit of the guy trying to explain why all of what you just saw was happening.
On September 11th, New York. I'm fine. My heart rate's about 55, man. I understand, but you need to get these kind of people away from me. And when I talk to an employee that works for Walmart that are trillionaires, which is a lot more than a billionaire or a millionaire, and she can't even speak English to me because you disappeared and I wasn't done yet, then there's a little bit of an issue. Because in Los Angeles, hold on, I'm almost done. When you're in Los Angeles and you can't speak the same language, whatever that language is, because I speak about 5 languages, but if you can't speak our language, I want to tell you straight up, people die, you guys. I'm a firefighter for Christ. I've been on over 25,000 emergencies. Hoorah, 25,000 for people like you.
I want to fact check on a couple different things. So I don't think that they're trillionaires. Second of all, the 5 languages, want to bet? I think I'll bet on that. Let me hear your 5 languages there, buddy. And he's been on 25,000, maybe. That's a lot. I don't know that I necessarily trust that. And that's just a whole bunch of life experience that we have to now, like, the thing is, you're trying to use it as an explanation, but you were being incredibly antisocial and racist. So now we have to figure out how you ended up as broken as you are, considering that you're a multilingual superhero, but you're still terrible. That's worse. You should hide that stuff, because then we just be like, well, yeah, he's a normal, terrible person. There's a lot of those. Now we have to figure out, how did Superman turn out to be so bad?
I also like the implication that because Walmart is, as he believes, $1 trillion corporation, that their underpaid employee for some reason needs to know how to speak English.
Yeah.
I also noticed, John, that you checked your heart rate when he said that, and you better hope it wasn't over 55, because if it was, that makes you a racist.
Well, I'm unfortunately, you can't trust me, because I must be getting emotional because I'm at a, oh damn, it's up to 75. I was at a C7. I worked myself up, okay? I'm gonna die early because of the news. I worry that I'm coming across as racist right now. Hold on, okay, I can use a racial slur in 1 minute, hold on. Okay, anyway, none of this makes sense. So my question for you, Rayyvana, though, is we're seeing more and more of these sorts of videos coming out. So are we getting worse, more racist, more antisocial, whatever, or are we just seeing it more, or both? What do you think it is?
I mean, I'd like to think that we're just seeing it more. As a white person, I've never experienced someone being racist to me. I literally cannot experience that directed at me. But I feel like it, with increase in social media usage, it also allows for people to post these kinds of videos, call out these racists. Everyone has a camera in their hands at all times. So I also think that making these videos, posting them, does do something in the way of preventing so many of these instances. Also, it's cut out of this video, but there's a part there, the clip that was played. I watched this video. There's a guy who just wanders up and it's like, I'm a part of the Aryan Brotherhood in the video. There's just so many twists and turns with this firefight, and the firefighter's like, amen, brother. It's just, it was a trip.
I just jumped up a couple off of that. Anyway, by the way, if you're an LA firefighter, thank you. Assuming you're not a racist. Like the whole California is just on fire. Do you know how bad it is? A whole town was just burned up. We have a fire right now that's burning. It's the 6th worst fire in California history. But we're so used to it that even the damage report, which loves talking about fires and things like that, we're not even covering it. So if you actually do that, thank you. I just like it best if you can fight fires while not being a racist. I don't know. I don't think that's too much to ask. Anyway, okay, let's jump into a story that's, it's not related, but it's not unrelated, okay? Let's do this. You might recall last year, the Central Park Karen, one of the earlier Karens actually, which so many Americans have tried to follow in the footsteps of. Just in case you don't remember, let's play a little bit of the interaction that this woman had last year.
Would you
Please stop. Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
Okay, it's been a while since I've watched this, so I had forgotten how awful it is to hear a woman talking about her dog being threatened, as she abuses it worse than I think I've ever seen a dog being abused, actually, in my own personal life. And then hearing her continually say, I'm gonna tell them that an African-American man is threatening me, is just, it hurts in my bones hearing that. And the baked in entitlement in saying that, like, I'm gonna get you because I'm gonna tell them that it's an African-American man. Anyway, we're gonna have an update, but Rayyvana, thoughts?
Yeah, just it is so hard to watch the video, number one, because of the racism, but also just to see what she's doing to that dog, which I'm fairly certain was taken away from her after this blew up. Like, thank God, she was deeply mistreating it. But it's also the way that she turned on a dime with the theatrics when she's on the phone with the police. All of a sudden, she's hysterical. Like, I'm threatened. I'm like, I can't breathe. Like, no, you're not. He's standing there far away from you, not doing anything. But Karens do have that ability to just turn it on, pretend that they're scared, and pretend that it's not just them, being racist.
Yeah, 100%. Like he didn't get any closer to her. He wasn't moving. He was just filming it, and all of a sudden she felt like she wasn't getting enough reaction out of the cops, so she turned it on. And that is, you talked in the earlier story about hoping that these sorts of videos inspire people to not do these sorts of things. I've often questioned that because there are so many. That is not actually evidence that it's not helping, but it worries me that people are so ready to be insane, to be antisocial, to say racist things, knowing that they're being filmed. And she still felt comfortable doing that with the guy filming everything that she was doing. I hope that gradually people get a little bit more sensitive to that. If we can't expect you to be a part of society when no one's watching, at least do it when someone's watching, please. That I don't think is too much to ask. But that said, the update is that, more than a year on, she is still defending what she did. She was on the podcast of Barry Weiss. Ugh. But anyway, said she had no other choice but to call 911 when the bird watcher, Christian Cooper, we didn't mention it, that was bird watcher. Most of you have seen the video, you know that, but offered her dog a treat after he asked her to keep the pooch on a leash. She said, he's holding these dog treats in one hand and a bike helmet in his other hand. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is this guy going to lure my dog over and try to hit him with his bike helmet? And if I end up over there, am I going to get hit by this bike helmet? I don't know that as a woman alone in a park that I had another option but to call police. That's a crazy way to think about. Like maybe he has the bike helmet because he was riding a bike before. I mean, that's a possibility.
I have been a woman alone in a park before, and I promise my mind has never gone there. Usually I see a bike helmet and I'm like, oh, this person was riding a bike. Not like, oh, this person wants to kill my dog and hit me with a bike helmet. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just absolutely not the most effective tool to use if someone did have nefarious intent. But of course, she only thought that because he was a black man. If it was a white man, I'm sure she wouldn't have, her mind immediately wouldn't have gone to, oh, this person's trying to hurt me. Oh, my life is in danger. My dog is in danger. And it really doesn't make her look good to say that. No, kind of an L on her part.
Sure, and look, she might say, well, look, my reactions on the video were, I wasn't sure what was happening. I had anxiety, like if someone stuck a camera in my face. She went onto a podcast to talk about this. She's had a year plus to think about what she did. And the best she's come up with was, oh, I've seen the video. I nailed it. There was no better thing that I could have done. Wouldn't change anything. Wish I could do it again. Like that's a crazy response. I wish I knew what Barry Weiss's response was. I kind of don't, but I wish I did. I have a feeling it wasn't highly critical of this woman. But anyway, she's mad because of like job stuff that developed as I lose interest in her personal life after this. I hope that at some point, like the cops being filmed should result in a change in their behavior. Regular people being filmed should result in a change in behavior. I can't control what you think, but like I at least hope that you would not like be eager to be known as an antisocial racist person. And that maybe this gets back to what we were talking about whether it's becoming more common or if we're just seeing it more. I do think that whatever social stigma against racism, I think that it's not as strong as it was. I think that Trump and other people in right-wing media and politics, like they've shown that you can get a following, you can be patriotic by doing these things, by focusing on these things. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of tools against it. There's not a lot of incentive not to be that way on the right. And I feel like it's filtering down to regular people. And you see it in Walmarts, you see it in Central Park, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the conservatives and the people who are the racists love to pivot to, oh, this is cancel culture. You can't tell someone's employer that they were doing racism in Walmart. You can't tell their employer that they said the N-word in Arby's. Like that's the real cancel culture. You're trying to ruin their life without like, a shred of irony at the fact that these are absolutely the consequences of their own actions. Like conservatives are allergic to accountability.
Yeah, and if you're that against cancel culture, maybe don't go into a person's workplace and attack them for speaking their language. And then
he's a firefighter. He can do that.
That's true. And then when you attack him, he says, "Hey, it's First Amendment." Well, then how is it not his First Amendment to speak Spanish or her? I don't even know. How does that not work? Why is the First Amendment only for conservatives? It's weird how that always works out. Anyway, unfortunately though, that is all the time for First Amendment we have. But Rayyvana, I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Where can people watch your show a little bit later on?
Yeah, so twitch.tv/TYT. It starts at, I won't use the Portillo's hot dog times. It's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Nice. I think you nailed it. Thank you. It was great having you on. Have a good day.
Thanks.
And by the way, before that, of course, you have Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, joined by Dr. Jonathan Metzl. Should be a really exciting show. So if you're at Twitch, or I believe at Twitch, if you're at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT, then you're fine. Just keep doing what you're doing. The good doctor will come on, have an awesome show. For my part, though, if I could have you do one more thing, that would be to go to the community tab on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/TheDamageReport, and you can vote in our community garbage person of the week poll. Tomorrow, Brett and I are gonna be choosing our garbage people, but you get to choose one as well. And boy, has this been a garbagey week. So go vote in the poll, we'll give you the results tomorrow. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
You know what time it is. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot on the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, breaking down news of the day with me will be Dr. Jonathan Metzl, who is a gun violence expert and professor at Vanderbilt, also author of Dying of Whiteness. That should be very fun. And my debate guest in the bullpen will be Andrew Ragusa. We're going to talk about the moratorium, evictions, COVID-19's impact. Should it be a lively debate? Ladies and gentlemen, my top story. Did you know it's possible to be an EMT and be racist and nothing will happen to you? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a throwback for Thursday. Here's a throwback. You see that cat? His name is Alex McNabb. Alex McNabb is host of a neo-Nazi podcast, and he compares black people to animals, but he works as an EMT specialist in Patrick County. Let me give you some more background. This story first came to light in 2019. I'm bringing this to your attention because of the new data that has come out showing that medical doctors and many involved in the healthcare arena, well, they engage in at least implicit racism based on the outcomes of their patients. Well, here's a guy that engages in a hyper-aggressive racism, and they did nothing to him, at least initially. McNabb, 35 years of age, is a frequent co-host of the Daily Shoah, as they call it, a popular neo-Nazi podcast. On the show, he regularly tells stories about being an EMT, often referring to patients by racist slurs and comparing black patients to animals. So this came to the attention of the company that he worked for and the counties that he serviced. There's more. After a 2-month investigation in which fellow employees were interviewed and patient care was investigated, the health department said, and I quote, "We're determined that there is no substantial evidence to support any violation of the EMS regulations and closed the case," even though he was a well-known white supremacist. I kid you not. I'll put another picture of him up. Now, this is a picture of him being grilled by the board, the supervising agency that really did go in on him. Now, he was exposed, he was investigated, the health department cleared him. There's more. McNabb, who unlike many in the white nationalist community, does not use an alias, made posts on social media showing himself in an EMT uniform. Let's show him also. Here's that uniform. In a recurring segment on the Daily Shoah, McNabb assumes a persona he calls Dr. Narcan. In these segments, he tells his co-host stories about being an EMT. He regularly refers to black patients as dentists, a deeply racist slur common among the alt-right. Let's put up another picture of this clown. McNabb, who by the way attended the deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017, of course he did, has appeared on over 130 episodes of the Daily Shoah. Shoah is a Hebrew word for calamity and is used most commonly to refer to the Holocaust, according to research from Megan Squire, a computer science professor at Elon University, who studies the far right. Titles of these episodes include Jews Always Lie, Are You Ready for Some Race War, and Black Alert, Black Alert. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring this to your attention because the white supremacist McNabb was initially cleared and allowed to continue to provide healthcare service to those in that community. It took more people to get outraged by this. Now we have a new study that has come out showing that all the way up to medical doctors and people involved in healthcare distribution, they in fact engage in systemic racism. According to the research, if you have a white health professional and you are a Black patient, you have a higher risk of dying. Damn. Let's bring the professor in on this. Professor, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, let me just say to start that I'm against racist EMTs. I'm against white supremacist EMTs. And as somebody who's a child of a Holocaust survivor, I'm against anti-Semitic EMTs. And so what I think is important about this case is here's a guy who's serving a public function, right? In other words, he could say, oh, it's the First Amendment, it doesn't matter. But this is somebody who's in many ways a public servant, just like a doctor, a policeman, a fireman. And what happened in this particular case is not just that he said all this horrible stuff, or that like many right ringers, they kind of co-opted, the Shoah is the Holocaust, right? So they're basically saying we're the victims of minoritized people, all this stuff. But the important thing in this case is he also started making claims that he was giving worse care to Black patients, right? So in a way, the divide between his online life, what he would say is his First Amendment right, and his job really became blurred. I mean, the kind of central part of this case is that he was saying he was using larger gauge needles in Black teens to draw blood, which is more painful and less effective. So there really was a spillover here between his kind of crazy online life and his job. And to me, that's the main point, is that, we live in a moment right now where people are saying horrible stuff online or nice stuff online. But in this case, to me, it was just kind of a slam dunk, because the minute it starts impacting what either your job or what you're claiming your job or how you're representing your job, number one, you're going to hurt people. And number two, it decreases public trust in, services that we all need, like EMTs.
Yeah, initially, he was cleared by the health department. He did eventually get fired by the board of supervisors, but he was able to remain on the job. He was able to remain getting a paycheck for months after it was exposed who he is. And even during the investigation and his testimony, he basically said that everything he says online should be protected by free speech, and that he's playing a character, even though the character that he made up, that he claims he made up, was closely related to the person he is in real life, an EMT worker who frequently has to care for Black patients and other minority groups. So yeah, he's out. However, the study is in, and the study shows that McNabb is not a silo. McNabb is part of a systemic culture in healthcare. Let me shift gears. This is a story that is heartbreaking, but something happened that can give you some hope. A racist caller attacked a 9-year-old Black child, called this child the N-word. This was a call that went to a restaurant that's Black owned. Residents of Alpine, California are rallying around a Black restaurant owner after a caller used racial slurs against the man's 9-year-old son. That photo was made public in Raw Story. We're going to show this precious young 9-year-old. Look at him. He's actually at his dad's business, learning the ropes, being the apprentice. Jakari J. Cousins, owner of Jay's Southern Cafe, told San Diego CBS affiliate that the incident occurred last week. Here's Jakari. And people love him in this community, by the way. So Mr. Cousins says, we received a call. How many N-words do you have in there? Now remember, this is a majority white community. So this caller says, how many N-words do you have in there? We can't come in and dine there, Cousin said. He commenced to call my son the N-word. We were totally shocked. We don't speak like that in our household. He goes on to say, it kind of knocked the wind out of me, Cousins added. I've explained to my children history, and you think history will be history. But there are individuals who are bitter, who walk around and have hatred. Now, here's the other side of this story that I actually appreciate. The white patrons of that business who go there on a regular basis, Not every now and then, but every single week, they stepped up. The station reports that dozens of local residents flocked to the restaurant on Tuesday, not realizing it is closed this week in the wake of the incident. They included a group of older white women, Glenda, Susan, Mary, Betty, and Elizabeth, who go out to lunch together somewhere every week. Let's put up a picture of his restaurant. He's receiving a lot of love on social media. There's a GoFundMe that was set up. People are contributing because they want to show the love. And let me tell you why this story is important to highlight. How many times have we seen people commit acts of violence and then somebody sets up a GoFundMe account for them and all of a sudden they become rich because they shot an unarmed person? So here's what I'm saying. In a sea of all of that madness, this is actually, at the end, a good story. It is a decent story about humanity stepping up and calling out others who do not fit the narrative that we're trying to push. And what is the narrative? The narrative is we celebrate diversity. We accept individuals as they are. We're not a racist nation. That's the narrative that we want to push. All right, Professor, you know this story. It is quite interesting because it started with a very racist individual attacking a 9-year-old kid, but it ended with white residents coming to the defense, not only of this restaurant, but of the defense of the black business owner.
Well, I mean, breaking news, a white person said something really racist. I mean, that happens, that happens a lot. And I guess the question is, I completely agree with you. What's the impact of this story? And what's the impact of a kind of story that goes viral? In other words, let's just imagine that for a month or 6 months or a year, people had been going in and supporting this business and nothing had happened. They've been supportive of this business. I have no idea. I have no idea. But we never would have heard of it, right? We never would have heard of it unless this one thing happened that we don't know how representative it is, but it does represent a bigger trend in society, which is somebody said something horrible and racist, and in this case, particularly egregious because it's to a kid. And I completely agree with you. That's the ethical moment right there, which is how do we respond as a country, as a nation, as people, as humans. And I think you're exactly right that in a way, these stories, whether or not they're representative, again, because social media does often tend to take the extreme example, that's the story that goes viral. But in this case, it's a challenge for us, not only in this one particular case. I mean, I want to go there and go to the restaurant. I want to go there and support it, but it's also like, what's the parable of this for our daily lives? How many microaggressions are happening around us on a daily level that this story can help us understand? And we're going to respond the same way if we see something like this that doesn't make it onto social media. So really, it's a challenge for society, and particularly so at this moment where the stakes are so high because of systemic racism, because of coronavirus, because of all the threats to our mortality right now. So really, this has to become a parable that people can use in their daily lives to say, I'm going to respond ethically when something like this happens in my life, even if it doesn't make it onto social media.
Very well said. And I want to make sure I'm very clear. America is in fact a racist country. That's a fact. Now, we would like to enjoy a narrative eventually where that's not the case, but you have to push against it. You have to make sure you challenge all of these notions of white supremacy, hyper and implicit racism, all of this systemic bias. So in this story, you literally have a group of individuals, and listen, they're not spring chickens, ladies and gentlemen, okay? All right, these individuals who came to the defense of this young black business owner, they are considered to be senior citizens. So you can't tell me that the generation is lost after a certain age. These women stepped up. And listen, they didn't just step up and say in some kind of private message or dropping a note in the mailbox. They went on the local news. They went on the local news and they stood there and they all defended not only the restaurant, but this black business owner and his child. And get this, That's one of the toughest things when it comes to racist in America. One of the toughest things is that a lot of white people who proclaim that they're not racist are afraid of other white racist people. That's a thing. That's a real thing for some people. And if you're willing to gauge your moral character, if you're willing to look for somebody else's permission to be moral, to be ethical, to be righteous, then you're not as good as you think you are. You really are not. Professor, what are your thoughts?
Well, of course, I completely agree with, and it actually links to the first story, which is on one hand, I think the challenge of this moment is that we all have an individual ethical response to reflect, change our practice, see where the inequity is in our lives. That's certainly part of it. But even thinking back to the first story about structural racism in medicine, some doctors are racist and they're doing stuff, and some doctors aren't racist and there's a racist outcome to their practice, right? That's the research I do. And that's because it's not just about individual racism in medicine or in where somebody can own a restaurant or everything like that. We live in a society that's very structurally racist. I'm thinking of the words of Stokely Carmichael in 1968, who said, "I don't care about the individual. Don't go around trying to change individuals' minds. For me, racism is the racism of the structure and the institution. It's zoning, redlining, school boards, things like that." And so part of this story is changing people's minds, calling out people, re-examining your own assumptions. But the other part of this is looking at the bigger structures, because let's be honest, we're always gonna have racist people. But if the structure makes it safer for people to have restaurants in different areas or have equal access to doctors or things like that, if we fix the structure, then I think these racist examples will have less power and valence than they do right now.
Professor, very well said. And I know you know that what you just described, you touched on critical race theory in this very moment. That critical race theory as a theoretical framework de-emphasizes individual racist and puts an emphasis on structural racism that can be codified in institutions, corporate norms, laws, statutes, ordinances, etc. And that's one of the challenges in our societal construct, that we are now living in a world, in an American culture, where somehow examination, questions have become bad. Literally, critical race theory poses an opportunity for an analysis, but it has now become so demonized that people are saying that it should be illegal.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for people like me who have been studying. I mean, call it whatever you want. Like I study. The last book before Dying of Whiteness was a book about why Black men were overdiagnosed with schizophrenia. I found in my research that Black men were 5 to 7 times more likely to get overdiagnosed with schizophrenia. And when I interviewed the doctors, some of the doctors said, "Oh, we're racist or whatever," but others said, "I really want to help my patients." But they were also overdiagnosing schizophrenia in Black men, not because of their own individual attitudes, but because the diagnosis of schizophrenia led to the prison industrial complex, and the definition of schizophrenia changed, and all these other factors. And so there are always these bigger factors. And so for me, I always look at any number of kind of what's causing an inequity that shouldn't be there: COVID outcomes, police brutality, health outcomes. And for me, it's like, how do you explain that? And for me, I mean, pick up my books, Dying of Whiteness or Protest Psychosis. I've got a lot of data that shows that actually the structure dictates the individual outcome. And so it's weird for me that that's even controversial. I mean, I know it's a talking point and all this kind of stuff, but it's like we should want to fix structures and make them more equitable and have better outcomes. That's actually better for everyone, if we. That's right. So that's kind of my take, is like, let's fix the structures, not like, go to war on this theory.
Well said, Doc. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old or 17, 18, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think, my dad's Oldsmobile. And I parked it in a place where there was 2 cars next to me, really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there, because I'm a terrible driver. Back then I was an even worse driver. And on the roads I'm okay, but in parking spots I have terrible spatial reasoning and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all 3 cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went boom, oh, and this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the third car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like, I went, okay, this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow, there's a B?
Yeah, I'm like this, I hit 3 cars, I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so one, my bad, really sorry about that. Okay, number 2, can someone take my car out? Because I don't wanna keep hitting your cars and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot.
Now baby, move that fat, baby, move that fat. Out.
Hi, I'm Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Hi, Brett Ehrlich here. According to EPA head Scott Pruitt, climate change is not happening. He cited a meme on Facebook he saw. When pressed to back up this source, he said it must be accurate because the watermark said it was made by a scientist. So, your move, Truth.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning and that weren't afraid to say, hey, this is something that is legitimate.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
Brent Welder is very progressive Democrat. He's a just Democrat. In fact, uncorrupted, not going to take big corporate PAC money. When did you start watching the show and when did you become a member?
So I've been watching for 10 years, an active viewer, but also more importantly, getting out there with causes like Wolfpack.
By the end of our campaign, we had organized about 22,000 individual contributions with an average about $27 a piece. And those initial people were a lot of TYT supporters as well.
In looking at the world in a very different way than corporate media does.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
Thank you, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks.
Thank you to TYT and all the progressives around the country that have our backs.
You know, the first and only interviews that we had tonight to be with the Young Turks as well, because you guys have been here from the very beginning, and that's what this night is all about.
And I thank Cenk very much for the very good work that he does.
Thank you so much for all in this together, and the people are so powerful, and we're gonna get it done.
Thank you for your constant support.
It's a pleasure to be with rebels. I like that.
For all of the help that you've given to the Just Democrats, to Wolfpack, to help fellow progressives, thank you guys, to all the Young Turks members that make it possible.
Hey, this is Edwin. Most of you might recognize me, well, not me, mostly my laugh from the main show.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to get the Uygur maneuver on him.
And today, my talent is Rubik's Cubes. You gotta forgive me, it's been at least 5 years since I competed. So that's why I'm actually going pretty slow. Watch this.
Welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read as many as I can. TYT member Carson is a lying mother Tucker. Says, how can the board initially see the facts about this guy and conclude that he is a good enough steward of the agency to keep his job? What led them to believe he's capable of objectively providing life support for minority patients? I have no freaking idea. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says he's been fired. Now, have they investigated his past patient losses or further damage done to them? Well, according to the initial investigation, they were supposed to investigate any kind of misconduct. I'm not sure if they really went far enough. YouTube super chat, law school stud says, love Dr. Metzel and Dr. Ritchie. On top of being a great researcher and overall great guy, Did you know Jonathan Metzl is an amazing softball player too? Is that true, Doc?
I think my softball team is watching this show right now, so
I love it.
I paid him $20 to say that.
Well, that's cheap, man.
Yeah.
All right, Jill Wagner says, enough. I'm sick of hearing the BS with the vaccines. Lost the love of my life because of the conspiracy theories being pushed. Get vaccinated. Jill, I'm so sorry to hear that, and keep spreading the message so that you can empower others to the right information, okay? Deidre Dragon, I work as an MA at a free clinic, and there was a racist volunteer there. It was a horrible nightmare situation. We mostly took care of undocumented patients, and he finally got ousted. Isn't that something? Relaine says, this has been a sad reality for Black folks for many years, talking about racist EMT workers. For many years, and people still don't believe us when we speak on doctors, healthcare workers mistreating us. Yep, 9-year-old. Tempest Perham says, that's how we learn about racism. Mom, why did this kid say not to touch me because of my skin color? Mom, why are they looking at us like that? Yeah, and once again, this 9-year-old had to be exposed to this kind of extreme racism. And he loses some of his innocence in that process. Marco Antonio says, I live there. If I lived there, I'd order something right now. Yeah, good stuff. Twitch, per 4TYT. Hi, Dr. Richie. Great to have you share my day. Always makes my days. Thank you so very much, and thank you. Jennifer Convertibles, that is so disgusting, talking about what happened with the 9-year-old. That kid isn't even allowed to keep their joy and innocence. There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what we do. We cover the Karens of the world because Karens are dangerous. I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
I feel free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Hey, what are you doing there? Hey.
Yes.
Yes. Why are you taking pictures of my car?
I'm with the HOA, and an
Yeah.
unlicensed car is not allowed to be parked in the driveway. It has to be in the garage, or
Right.
perhaps it could be covered with a car cover.
Okay.
So I just wanted to let
And your name is what?
Eager, and I left you some Charwell information,
Correct.
and so there's some information there. You can go online and sign the documents that say that.
I appreciate you not creeping around my house.
Well, I tried to come and knock on your door, so just letting you know.
And then take a picture of my tag, and
I will
so.
not submit the tag number, but I will have to submit the expiration.
Okay. I thought you guys did all that stuff from the curb and weren't coming onto people's property.
Well, it's pretty obvious that you backed the car in, so.
Well, actually, that's how they dropped it off when I asked them to tow it. So.
Okay, well.
Do you have a job?
Yeah. Yes, I work from home.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, she has a job. She's a full-time Karen. The Karenicity in this one runs deep. Now remember, she is with the HOA. And because she's with the HOA, she is obviously empowered with these certain rights. Maybe he is in violation of some HOA rule, but she's literally in violation of a criminal law. You cannot trespass on the property of others. You can't do that. And she's citing the HOA rule. While yes, she's in violation of the criminal statute of trespass, she's also in violation of the HOA rules, which says that you have to observe from outside of the property. So let's count the ways here. She's in violation of her own rules at the HOA. She's in violation of an actual criminal statute. And she is going to be courteous. And she said, I'm not going to put your tag number out there, but I have to put the expiration date. Professor, you know a little something about the behavior of individuals. What's at the core of these Karens, brother?
You know, I think what we're seeing now is a kind of behavior that, going back to the last segment, has been going on for a long time, right? There's nothing new if you've been the victim or the target of this kind of behavior, which is kind of holier than thou virtue signaling with a profound racial overtone that basically reinforces the kind of ideologies of a dominant group against minoritized groups. We see this a lot, and it's been going on for a long time. And I think what's good about calling attention to this and the attention that it's gotten is, number one, don't do that anymore, because you're gonna end up on indisputable. You're gonna end up somewhere. So number one is like, this behavior is not okay anymore. But I think that in a way, this kind of calling out is what it takes, right? Because I think that it's hard. I mean, this case, that was idiotic, no doubt about it. But there's a bunch of them that don't end up, getting recorded and stuff like that. And so I think, again, that it's really a parable to kind of say that what's acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior have changed, and we learn it through these kind of things, and that actually not acting this way is better for everybody in a particular way. And so in that sense, I think there's a bigger lesson, and we see that a lot. I mean, maybe things that Governor Cuomo thought he was doing 20 years ago are not acceptable now. Maybe things that other leaders thought they were doing before. So mores change, and it takes stories like this to basically say that might have been okay before, but it's not okay now. And really, hopefully, that leads more broadly to changed behavior. But of course, you also can't help but think that if somebody acted like this and they weren't a white woman, what response would they get if they walked on and started to take a picture of your car? So of course, there's also the counter parable, which is who gets to walk on your property and not get the cops called on them or arrested or hauled away. So all these things, again, that really make us think that we're learning something about how to re-engage in the public sphere, and hopefully it leads to a better outcome. But in the meantime, stop doing it.
Yeah, public embarrassment, public shame can lead to a social transformation of behavior. We've seen it happen in tort law, what's acceptable and not acceptable, to now what's normative. We've also seen it happen in social advocacy. Dr. King had a simple philosophy. His philosophy was, I have to expose what they're doing through the media in order to transform public perception, thus transforming the reality of policy. But in order to get there, you had to have an exposure of the egregious behavior. So it was a strategy connected to that. Doc, I got a treat for you, double dose.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
I'll be charity. I'm just trying to help you.
I'm sorry, but I don't need your help.
Yes, you do. You do need my help, sir. Can't you see that, you son of a bitch?
Could you please just let me check out my groceries?
I'm trying to help you.
Wow, this is...
You gotta ask Jesus Christ.
I don't have to do anything.
We're all sinners.
Okay.
He's not gonna force you to do it.
You're sinning right now.
No, I'm not. Are you accuser? Get the out of here, you accuser. You accuser. Get the out of here.
Wow.
You accuser. Accuser of the brethren, you.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you what's going on?
I'm pissed because you won't repound.
Okay.
I just want to get some groceries and go home.
So, because this is religious views don't match yours, you're mad at me?
I don't give a because it's gonna burn in hell.
Okay. Then why?
And you are too, bitch. If you don't have Jesus Christ as your savior, you're gonna be down there with them, screaming in holy terror, fire and brimstone. Do you get it?
Yeah, totally understand.
I don't want you to burn in hell for all. You know what that's who you're.
That is my choice in life.
You all better repent because the
This is what happens when you go all the way white Jesus. White Jesus is a fictional character. He was never white. But I promise you, there are some things I can conclude about this person. She believes in white Jesus. She voted for Donald Trump. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, there's so much more. This is not only a throwback Karen, but this is a serial Karen. This first video was in New Haven, Michigan. It was posted back in 2020, where you see all of that happening at the checkout. In these videos from early 2020, she was originally known as Religious Rita because she unleashed her religious fury on anyone she believed was in need of salvation. Now this video, different location in the Michigan area, she was harassing a Muslim man or somebody she assumed so. Here it is.
You're not going to get 72 virgins if you murder. Why? Can you imagine a man and a woman who are married? And the man.
He's trying to, but she's harassing him.
The woman is in love with him. The guy murders himself. He gets 72 virgins. What does she get out of it? Huh? Does she get 72 in her mouth? Is that what she gets?
Does Jesus use her language? Does Jesus use her language? Does Jesus use her language?
True or not? Does the Quran say that you're going to get 72 virgins if you marry yourself? Is that true? Because what is the woman that you marry? And you marry her, and you love her, do you know what's going to happen to you unless you repent and ask Jesus Christ to forgive you?
Maybe you should ask Jesus Christ. You should ask all the gods.
There's more. Believe it or not, there is a lot more. Christina Love Karen was arrested for her behavior in these two cases. And at the time it was reported, she was facing a disturbing the peace charge. According to one report, the woman had a string of encounters with the police around the time going back to December 4th, 2019, a list of 34 contacts with law enforcement, including traffic infractions going back to 2011. But as I said, there's more. A garbage truck incident. She had scheduled for 4 garbage bags to be picked up by a garbage truck. Okay, simple enough. When the truck arrived, they grabbed the 4 bags and left the rest, which was not in bags. Okay, we understand that. She saw he left garbage items and tried to chase down the garbage truck in her car, and she cut him off in traffic. Here's what happened.
So deep, I can't even help now. What's your driver's license number?
I don't have to give that to you.
Let me see your driver's license.
You're not a police officer.
You just hit my vehicle.
Ma'am.
Give me your driver's license.
You pulled right out in front of me.
Yeah, and when someone pulls in front of you because there's an emergency, you slow your rear end down and you stop.
Okay, these
Have
are
you
not
ever had someone have an emergency?
These are not cars.
Pull in front of you?
These are not cars. They don't stop on a dime.
It doesn't matter. You have to be far enough behind.
You know what? I'm going to tell you the whole
You should have picked up my trash, big boy.
I picked up your trash.
No, you didn't. You want to go see what you left?
I left the carpeting and the
You're
bedding.
supposed to pick up everything.
Nope, 4 bags.
Yeah.
Is what you're serving.
Oh, you are in so much
And
deep
last
crack.
week I
Well, you
picked
wait
up
till
more
your
than
boss
this, too.
tells you what you
He's
got to
on
pick
his
up.
way here, too,
You
man.
think you get to decide what you pick up and what you
No,
don't?
it's what you ordered.
You little twerp.
It's what you ordered.
You little twerp. I know what I ordered.
Okay.
And you're going to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, baby. You like your job? You like it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, good luck, because you ain't going to have it. Pass today, baby. When someone has an emergency and they pull in front of you, you slow down and you stop, boy.
I tried to slow down.
You didn't try hard enough, baby.
These don't
Because
stop
you
on a
slammed
dime.
into the back of me.
These don't stop on a
Well,
dime,
you should
man.
know that. You should have picked
You
up my
didn't give me
trash.
time. You didn't give me time.
4 days. Mommy says he had 4 days.
That was actually an impressive chicken impression, by the way. So in that last one, this Karen, she literally chased him down, got in front of this driver, caused an accident, and then you saw the rest. Professor, this one goes deep. These are the videos that we have access to.
Yeah, she's not well, right? And so I think that, I first want to say, having just seen these videos the first time along with a lot of other people, I mean, it's amazing. People showed a lot of restraint in these videos. And so part of the story is like, this person's up in your face, she's yelling, doing all this stuff. And certainly, I mean, again, I'm not knowing what else happened or things like that, but this was, very, very aggressive, very hostile. And again, I'll go back to the question we were thinking about before, which is, what does that tell us? In other words, is this a representative of some bigger thing, right? And I think the important thing to note about these kind of videos is that on one hand, this is a very extreme example, right? I don't think you could get away with that kind of behavior in a lot of places. You certainly couldn't. I'm in New York. Try that in a more kind of liberal city or something like that. But I also think it's important to note that she's propagating a dominant ideology. In other words, these videos have valence because this is a white person, talking about a Christian ideology. This is the dominant thing. And so I always wonder, what if she was a person of color acting this way? What would the response be? What if myself? What if she was telling everybody to convert to Judaism? What if she told people to convert to Rayyactions? That we're all from spaceships or something like that. And so, in a way, I guess the question is, what's the line between aggression and mental illness, right? And it has to do with these bigger ideologies in a way. But in general, those are, honestly, I'm a psychiatrist. Those are some pretty disturbing videos, honestly.
Yeah, and what's deep about it is it seems as if she understands right and wrong in the context of when she was approached by the cashier, if you remember, she completely cut off the argument, said yes ma'am very calmly to the cashier, and then when the cashier said something she did not like, she engaged once again in that extreme aggression, and really I don't understand how religious bigotry is at the core of your evangelism. If you're really trying to authentically evangelize what you believe, and this is just me, maybe I'm old fashioned, but you do it in way of the example that you set for others. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent. Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richard Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week. The unrest inside of the black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable. You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them. Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black? Nope. But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, crucify bad cops, brother. Bad cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, bro.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back, it's Indisputable. We got a lot of your comments, let's get to it. TYT member Mickey C. the Silver Hair Dragon says, laughing my effing A off. Love this good Christian woman's language. Nothing I don't use myself, but then I don't proclaim to be a good Christian woman. Felicia, hi, Dr. Richie. Professor Metzel is a great guest. Thank you, TYT. That's right, he's awesome. Dope dude. Super chat, Kelly O'Hara says, Doctor, tell me the news. I've got a bad case of Karen Blues. Oh, Kelly with her poems. And thank you, I did receive the email. I appreciate that. I may make a collection if you keep them coming, okay? Tiger Katsune says, the HOA comes into our property too. They were looking for dog droppings, then harassed my mother. We're black, the HOA here is white. Seems racist, seems like they need to get the hell up off your property. That's what it seems like to me. Okay, sorry that's happening to you. R. King Juan Garcia, she thinks she's going to heaven with that potty mouth. Yeah. Forbesilla says she's got a mental problem, doc, and possible Tourette's by her inability to not be able to control her speech. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's it, Doc. You're the mental health expert. Is that Tourette's, in your opinion, based on observation?
Well, I think we can all say that it's not normal to like roll on the ground and do the chicken cluck.
Right.
But I would say that it's very hard to diagnose people you don't know, and so I usually refrain from doing it. But I will say that that's not Tourette's.
That's not Tourette's. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Charles Massey, to the chicken Karen, meth is a hell of a drug. That's another diagnosis that you can't make, Doc. Okay. But obviously Charles can, by the way. Okay. All right. Thank you, Charles. Rick Moore. I don't pay bills on the property, but I'm going to tell you where to put your vehicle. I know that's right. You don't pay nothing on this damn property. The hell are you doing here? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a Detroit cop punches a man in the face. A Michigan cop was caught on camera punching an unarmed man in the face and seemingly knocked him out cold. Before we show the video, let me describe what led up to it. Police are shown beating up a man in an orange mask on the side of the building. Here's that pic, okay? That's scene one. We will call that scene one. Scene two, the man in the orange and blue shirt sees this and tries to intervene. He's being a good Samaritan. He's trying to help. It's very clear in the footage. This person is not the aggressor against police officers. He's trying to help. An officer shoves the good Samaritan to the ground. Okay, we got it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens next.
I ain't got to do that, dog. Oh my Lord.
So sad. If you blink, you would have missed it. Horrific. The interim chief says the officers will be given due process and a report will go to the Wayne County prosecutor. If it could turn into criminal charges for the police, if this was unprovoked police brutality. The officer who threw the punch is now on desk duty. The other officers remain on the job. No officers, none of them have been suspended during the investigation for now. None of them have been suspended. It is clear it was unprovoked. Professor, what are your thoughts here?
Two thoughts. Number one, that's police brutality. Punching somebody unprovoked, knocking them out cold like that, it's just pretty clear cut, seems to me. And given that we're having a national referendum, like really a soul searching on how to keep communities safe, what right and wrong policing are, that's not it, right? And so partially, it's the same thing, right? Given what the world we live in right now, police can't do that. And the fact that it was caught on tape really, again, makes us think: what are the other versions of this that haven't been caught on tape, right? That just happened. Somebody was filming that, but that doesn't happen. And so, really, I think it's important to highlight and say this is really not okay. And maybe we thought it was before, in our twisted system, but right now, it's pretty clear cut. So number one, that is really just bad policing, right? You just can't be doing that. And so that's part of it. I think, and the other part is just, what do we do with these stories, right? How does a story like this help us get to where we want to go, which is, if this is bad policing, what's good policing, right? What do we want policing to look like? And so when stories like this call attention to egregious examples like this, it's also an opportunity for us to define, okay, here's a better way, right? The answer to this is not this kind of relationship between police and communities. I guess the last point for me is, again, in my book on schizophrenia, I found that Black doctors were just as likely as white doctors to overdiagnose schizophrenia in Black men. The implication wasn't that it was a white doctor doing this racist thing to Black patients. It was actually the role of what it meant to be a doctor, putting on the white coat, you were stepping into this structure that was racialized. And so what I found in my research is the race of the doctor almost didn't matter. And so it's interesting in this example, because this is a Black policeman, it looked like, who threw that punch. And so in a way, it's not just about one racist person. What that suggests is it's the framework of what it means to be a policeman, this kind of adversarial thing. So it's not just like, let's weed out one individual. It's that there's some kind of structural issue that is about what it means to be a policeman, independent of the skin color of the police officer.
And that's why you de-emphasize the individual and you examine it through a structural lens based on that assessment. Okay, next story. Imagine you are a real estate agent, you got a client's son is there, you're showing a property, that's your job, and cops pull guns on you because neighbors think black people, nice house, must be robbing the place. That's exactly what happened to a black real estate agent, his client, and the client's teenage son. They were handcuffed. They were held at gunpoint during the showing of a Michigan home on Sunday, August 1st, after a neighbor called 911 to report a break-in. Here's a picture of the victims, Brown and Roy Thorne. They're the victims here. Realtor Eric Brown and his client Roy Thorne were at a home with Thorne's 15-year-old son. What a hell of a lesson to learn for a 15-year-old child. When they noticed a growing police presence outside the house, the men say officers were pointing guns at the house and ordered his son, and ordered them to exit the home single file with their hands raised. Brown, Thorne, and his son were held at gunpoint until they were placed in handcuffs. After Brown showed his credentials, proving that he was a realtor showing the home, Wyoming officers apologized and let the trio go. They provided an explanation, and here it is. Police said they were responding to a neighbor's 911 call and have defended officers' actions, saying proper protocol was followed. The Wyoming Department of Public Safety takes emergency calls such as this seriously, and officers rely on their training and department policy in their response. Captain Timothy Pohl said the race didn't play a role in the incident. The department was responding to a call for service. There wasn't a racist element. But here's what you may want to do. If somebody calls 911 and says, hey, people are breaking into this home, maybe you ask a few questions like, is the home occupied at the moment? Is this home for sale? Could it be a real estate agent? How do you know they're breaking into the home? Did you see forced entry? Simple questions. Brown said he would have been treated differently if he were white. I agree with him, and expressed concern about showing homes in the future if people would see him and call the police on a whim again. And am I just automatically the criminal? Because that's pretty much how we were treated in that situation. That officer came back and apologized again, but at the same time, the damage is done. My son was a little disturbed. He hasn't seen anything like that. He's not going to forget this. And let me correct the record. Sir, I work with young people. Your son is not a little bit disturbed. He's really disturbed. He may not express to you verbally how disturbed he is. It may come out in other ways. Doctor, you got some background with this?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. Of course, this is implicit bias 101, right? You see somebody's skin color, you assume, and the reason this story has so much valence is because it links to other stories that even have worse outcomes than this. A young black man goes jogging through a neighborhood. Do you assume he's a burglar and citizens shoot him or police find? So in a way, this story is given so much weight because it ties into so many other stories that have horrible outcomes like this or much worse outcomes. Again, I'll just say as my final point that we're in a moment now where everything is up for grabs. We're in a very existential, urgent moment. And this is a time for us to highlight and call attention to these kind of stories. And for the betterment of everyone, really change society. Really, that's the lesson of the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. That's the aftermath of what we're learning in the pandemic, which is, believe it or not, if we create a more equitable society, if we close the racial wealth gap, if we create health equity, society is going to work better for all of us. And then stories like this are going to be the exception and not the rule.
Doctor, Vanderbilt is lucky to have you. Please tell everyone how they can follow you, get access to your remarkable book or books.
I'm on Twitter 24/7. Just look at me at Jonathan Metzl, or my book is Dying of Whiteness. Just dyingofwhiteness.com. But just get me through Twitter. I'll write you right back. So take care.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Indisputable, Doc.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, we got more on the other side. Stick and stay. The bullpen is next.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. Hey, remember we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Rayyvana became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive. And you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you've never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Welcome back. Okay, we got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read as many as I can. Thank you all for always chiming in. And don't forget, after the show, Rayyactions with Rayyvana. Make sure you do that. All right, TDR viewers, switch to Indisputable TYT. Always make that happen as well. And follow us on social media, Indisputable TYT. That's Twitter, that's Instagram. Just make it happen, all right? Okay, TYT member, Danielle Labique, I think. Hi, Dr. Richie, it is always great to see you. Thank you for sharing that care and doing the chicken dance. It had me laughing my effing A off. And it's been a rough week with Nina losing. So this is exactly what I needed from me and my bro, Dave Schmidt. We love you, Doc. And I love you back. Let me just remind you, because I was on TYT calling that election, had a remarkable time doing that, but it hit me as well. Nina Turner is one of the most dynamic individuals in America. That's period. We're lucky that she even wants to be involved in politics. But I want to remind you that there is no finality with democracy. You always get another opportunity, okay? Just remember that. All right, YouTube, super chat. Bunny Pop, dude was backing up and they followed after him just to punch him. WTF, I know. Larry Billup says they should have asked questions beforehand. Exactly, talking about the realtor. Our Future Now says, why the hell couldn't they just walk up and knock on the door? I know, right? And just say, hey, what's going on here? Grumpy Cat, thank you, Dr. Metzel. He was great, wasn't he? Twyla Netsky says, folks, Google the name of the book and you can get a good preview of it. All right, Rose Jackson, I will buy his book. Cool. Twyla says, again, I think the two docs make the best team yet. I could watch you two all day, perfect compliment to one another. He's a dope dude, isn't he? For real. Mike Boy Raps. I think it should be accepted that pulling guns on unarmed civilians is bad 100% of the time. Yeah, and then you got children involved and they're walking out with hands on their head in a single line and they're working and looking at a home. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. All right, in the bullpen today, we have Andrew Ragusa, real estate investor, and he's going to talk about the eviction moratorium extension. He's making a case against it. Should be an interesting conversation. Andrew, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
Dr. Richie, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you believe or know about the eviction moratorium. So if you would, give us some of your context to your belief as it relates to the moratorium.
Sure, so I'm a big proponent of trying to get everyone back to normalcy. I think everybody wants to get back to society being somewhat the way it was prior to the coronavirus being around. And I think a big cog in that machine is going to be bringing the eviction moratorium to an end so that people can get back to the give and take relationship that is supposed to be taking place between landlord, tenant, and that entire scenario.
Okay, now, I don't agree that the moratorium is the end all solution because literally by definition and by policy design, it only kicks the can down the road. But I do think it's part of the solution. Now, would you agree that the moratorium utilized at least as a stopgap measure during the height of COVID-19 and what was happening to the American workforce, it was actually a good idea that could have been done better?
Absolutely. At the time the moratorium was put into place, it was the appropriate action to protect Americans, to protect people. It was absolutely necessary. My only argument here is that during this present time scenario where we have a labor shortage and people are saying that they can't find help, industry needs people to help with manufacturing, businesses are looking for more workers and they're offering more pay than before. In this scenario, it's time to start bringing back some accountability on both ends of that landlord-tenant relationship to move us forward. Because if there's jobs, you should be able to pay that mortgage.
Well, here's the ecosystem problem that you have right there. And I understand what you're proposing. But when you already existed in a system structure that did not pay the bills, meaning you had a job, but your job doesn't pay the mortgage, Well, it becomes even more pronounced when now you're behind on your mortgage.
Absolutely.
And the moratorium simply says, let's accrue your mortgage responsibility. And all of a sudden, you owe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at one time, and you were barely able to work that job and pay the bill that was in front of you. Now you've had a disruption of that. So what's the solution in that scenario, brother?
Well, I completely agree with you. The system was broken to begin with. And I think a big reason for that is because people in the millennial generation specifically have all been sold the big lie. And the lie is college would get you a good paying job. And it's just not the case, because plenty of people have went to school, buried themselves in debt, and then came out missing skills, missing things that could make them marketable in the workforce. But there is a solution in place. The beautiful thing about America is that you can do anything. I know 20-year-olds who love Instagram so much, he started a marketing company. And now that guy makes $35,000 a month just managing other people's Instagram accounts. I know people who are able to create wealth for themselves simply because their mindset set them free. And that does not mean that it's only available for a few, it's available for those who believe they can.
Okay, so brother, let me tell you the problem in your analysis. You are assuming that your microcosm can explain the macrocosm. So let me give you some statistical data as it relates to college and technical training. Sure. I agree with you that everybody doesn't have to go to college. Okay, I support technical education. I work with the technical education programs. Right. But when you take away programs to give you access to those programs, you are working against the reality, the cause and effect dynamic associated with actual training and the workforce. Not necessarily a college degree, even though statistically, if you have a college degree, you make more money. That still is a real statistic. That's a reality every day. If you have technical training, you can make more money. But if you are saying, here's your solution, you have to get this specialized training, and at the same time, there's an effort to eliminate the funding so that you can have access to this specialized training or technical education, then does it not work against itself, brother, when we both know that is the solution for a better paid, more trained workforce?
Absolutely. I don't think we should get away with anything that enables people access to education. My only request here would be to get access to better quality data, because the reality is that if the education and the data that we're receiving in this generation was good, we wouldn't be buried in financial debt. We wouldn't be in the situation that we're in where you're not employable. I went to college and I got a bachelor's and master's degree, came out looking for a job, and no one would give it to me. And it was just at that time they were saying, oh, there's plenty of unemployment going on right now, and not a lot of people were hiring. But for some reason, other people were getting jobs and I wouldn't. I actually got my real estate license thinking I would do this temporarily, and then I saw what was possible, and I decided to take the bull by the horns and just keep going. And 6 years later, I find myself investing in real estate and helping other people do the same. I actually teach people how to become realtors. Yeah. So I really believe that with the right kind of mindset, you can set yourself free. And all I'm asking is that the data that people learn become better and more accountable.
I think you kind of contradicted your own argument. You said that you were unemployable with an undergraduate and graduate degree, but everybody around you, they were getting hired. Does that not then become a you problem rather than a statistical problem?
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been what I was studying. I studied healthcare administration, and because at the college campus they told me, the recruiter over the phone said if I got this degree, I would be employable as a basically like a department manager in a hospital. And that's what I was trying to do, was work my way up the business of hospitals. But it was just simply not true. I was told whatever it took to sign that paper, take on the debt and pay. So I went through the program and did what I was told. I put the trust in the people who were there to guide me. And now I ended up in a situation where I was buried in $60,000 of student loan debt and looking for another solution.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that that's the system that I think caused the whole scenario where you're saying jobs are not paying people well. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is interesting. I actually have published research about the cost of higher education. It costs too much damn money to go to school. All right, period. And this is a challenge that continues to permeate in our American society. Other industrialized nations, they've solved it. We have not. We still have out of control college debt, and it's because of the price of college. Now, let's go to a reality in the data, since you said let's get better data for things. If you actually extend the moratorium, okay, and I know they didn't do it federally, but if they would have, you actually save more taxpayer dollars than not. So let me give you a little bit of background to the data of homelessness, okay? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people becoming homeless. That's what we're saying. This is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to their assessment, it would cost $20 billion to truly end homelessness in America. That number is a big number, but let me put it in perspective. Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. We spend $35 billion a year on gym memberships. And we spend $718 billion on military alone. That was the assessment of 2019. Let me give you another data set. It currently costs about $35,000 to $37,000 for a homeless person to be in a local community or state. That's how much it costs on average for us to take care of that homeless person and what may happen due to the revolving door of incarceration, mental health, benefits that they take advantage of, et cetera, okay? You got about $35,000 to $37,000. You know how much it would cost to actually resolve it on the front end with actual housing at cost? $12,800. $12,800 in the front end would save the taxpayer $35,000 to $37,000 on the back end. So why have we never approached it as that commonsensical?
Well, Dr. Ritchie, I want to make my position really clear on the subject first too. I don't think millions of Americans need to be kicked out of their house. I think that would be a terrible solution. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. There needs to be another solution put in place that is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's better a present time solution to the scenario at case. We need both the bank, the landlord, and the tenant to all be a little bit compassionate with each other and look for some sort of common ground. Like we both know right now that the banks are making a killing on these mortgages that they write, and they make millions and billions and billions of dollars. So if they gave a little leniency to that landlord, and that landlord can pass that leniency down to the tenant, then that would be a great thing for society. I don't think making millions and millions of people homeless is the right thing to do. It's clearly wrong. And even from a business perspective, millions and millions of vacancies would crash a market. So it's not a smart solution either way. But there has to be put back into place a system of give and take and a system of exchange, because that is what got us to where we are now. It was always the even exchange and the relationship of win-win. You pay rent, we provide housing, maintain it, keep it clean, right? Yes, there were flaws in the system, but you can only try to make it better and progress forward, right?
You got to address those flaws. So you can't get to a real solution without addressing the underlying issues that led to it in the first place. What we're seeing are the disparities, but the disparities were present and they coexisted well before the housing crisis, COVID-19, anything else. Let me read another stat to you, brother, because I agree with you on the tenant side, right? Because this is bad for tenants too. Evictions are bad for tenants and it's bad for landlords.
Yes.
So here's what happens if you provide no safety net for what's happening right now in America with the suspension or not allowing the moratorium to continue and not truly providing a solution or remedy for the whole problem. When you accrue filing fees, lawyers' cost, lost rent, which are the vacancies you just talked about, and damages to the unit. Studies show that these eviction-related costs will average $4.2 million in the short term. Nationwide, 2.6 to 4.6 billion in the long term, and 50 billion, brother, after 1 year. 50 billion. That's just on the landlords, right? So why is it a disconnect between the landlord and the tenant when it comes to the policy that must move it forward? You have to agree with me, brother, saying that the moratorium needs to end and just saying nothing else. That's not helping landlords. That's hurting them based on the numbers.
That would not be a smart solution whatsoever. I think the moratorium needs to end, but there has to be some other regulation enacted that helps ease the adjustment back. But it was that accountability in the exchange process on both ends that created a winning relationship to begin with. There should be some sort of safety net in place, maybe some sort of subsidies or tax breaks or anything that would help recover lost money and ease the landlord-tenant scenario back into a normal state. Cutting it off completely and saying, okay, now you're gonna get kicked out of your house would do incredible damage to everyone involved. So I don't think that would be a smart solution.
Yeah, so the Urban Institute, they have numbers as well. If you were to evict 4.2 million adults right now, if you were to do that, the cost to the tenants would be $1,200 per unit, which is about $5 billion. Lost earnings would go to $1,500 per unit, which is $6.6 billion. And the total cost to tenants across the country would be $2,700 per unit, which is $11.6 billion. The cost to the landlords, based on the Urban Institute study, if you were to evict 4.2 million adults, the cost to serve these evictions, 2.6 to 4.6 billion, just to serve the eviction. All right. The cost of lost rent and repairs up to 50 billion, and the total cost for landlords per unit is between 2,542 to 12,998, which means on the high end of that, you're looking at over $11 billion in actual revenue loss.
Yeah.
So these numbers, for some reason, are hidden from a lot of the policy debate as it relates to what solution should be on the table. And this is a game that a lot of people play in partisan politics, especially. Agreed. They would try to frame this, brother, as a landlord versus tenant discussion. Well, the truth is, it is a landlord and tenant discussion.
Absolutely, it's a society discussion, right? We all need to progress forward with a solution that makes sense for everyone involved. You can't have a one-sided solution that will destroy a lot for a lot of people. And I'm a big proponent of finding common ground. So you're not gonna find me arguing one way and not the other.
Brother, I appreciate your time on Indisputable. You have an opportunity to come back, man. And listen, brother, continue doing what you're doing. I know you and I may disagree on some finer points, but we do agree on some major ones too.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, just remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of this planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.